possibly go wrong?
Oh, okay, now we're live.
Oh no!
Yeah, episode 79 of Cast and Shadows, where we talk about all things Star Citizen, I guess. We got, speaking of, talking about the Alpha 317.2A live patch, the hotfix patch finally came out. So, elevators are supposed to be working. I literally just logged in to the patch for the first time, so I have no idea if anything's actually working or not. But so far I haven't run into any glitches, so that's a good start.
What was it that this patch was supposed to fix?
Elevators not working. A lot of stuff relating to posters. Yeah, let me get the list up because going off memory is not the best. Right. So we got the bug fixes. So stuff like multiple elevators to break and not function. Party launching should now work more consistently. They fixed an issue causing player medical beacons to not complete. Pay the player after they brought them back from incapacitation. They fixed an issue causing missions to go missing and block missions from completing. Fixed a bug where search and destroy missions where probes the destroyed counter reports wrong if you destroy the probes before the mission says you locate. Like, you know that the illegal surveillance missions where you're flying around having to scan for the 3 probes?
Mm-hmm.
If you destroy them before the mission marker appears over them, it wasn't registered.
Gotcha.
That's fixed, supposedly. Ships should no longer get stored at Klesher upon completing a prison sentence. That was annoying. They fixed a cargo hold area of space derelict reclaimers that allowed players to clip and see through the hull. The Hull A, Empyrean, Horizon, and Dusk paints should no longer be missing. The rear of the Drake Mule should no longer start to float if the vehicle navigates over steep inclines/hills. NPCs on dropships should no longer be completely unresponsive for an extended period of time. That was interesting. Because you just see NPCs that are just standing there completely motionless. Just gun them down. On occasion, they wouldn't even do anything when you gun them down. Like, they wouldn't even die. They fixed an issue causing players to have an infinite load screen after recovering from a client crash while in a ship or vehicle. Player list and Comlink app will no longer reset scroll position back to the top when the player list updates. Which, that's been an issue that's plagued the Comlink since its existence, so assuming it's actually bug actually has been fixed, that's pretty good. We got an issue that was causing combat assistant service beacons to pay much more than intended. Players should no longer be arrested when using the Orison Spaceport docking port elevators. I didn't even know that was a thing. Sending AUEC to a player not in the sender's instance no longer caused AUEC to appear into the void. Renting ships should no longer give a transaction error. Go-to mission objective part of the unauthorized surveillance detected mission no longer fail after players have already completed the mission. So yeah, a lot of fun glitches. They also fixed 8 client crashes, 9 server crashes, 2 server deadlocks. They fixed a back-end server crash that was causing AUEC wallets to reset to 0, and made many back-end super Pcache improvements to make it more robust. So overall, this was pretty much just a really, really large hotfix.
Gotcha.
As far as known issues are concerned with this hotfix, because Star Citizen, there's going to be a long list of known issues. Saber Raven VFX, so green flickering lights fills the screen when you are sat in the pilot seat during weather VFX, so the player will receive a loner saber. Players may have to restart the game after getting kicked to the 30k server crash. Ship's target pip may be missing or disappear for some players. They cannot be targeted when this happens. Multi-vehicle bug relating to ships floating in the hangar when stored with the engines left on, then retrieved again. The player character arm will misalign when seated ships, causing obstruction of HUD in view. That's been a common one for a
Yeah,
while.
I've had that. Like the right arm looks like it's holding the head or something.
Or it's like, you're in your Pisces and your arms are kind of just right in front of your face, blocking your screen, like fully stretched out. The Car2 all spawns on the hangar floor sideways. I've heard of that one. Weapon fire penetrates shields when ships are moving. Got a refuel bug here. While docked to the Starfarer, multiple vehicle types will continuously tilt instead of remaining stationary and snap away from the arm if any attempted. The Argo-Ras elevator controls cannot be interacted from either deck. Crusader Ares headlights are too dim to notice at reasonable range. All weapons are held like a pistol whilst moving. UGF missions are sometimes missing NPC spawns to complete the mission. Weapon holsters or unholsters unintentionally. So a lot of these are bugs that have been there for, I'd say, the better half of this whole year, if not more. Common bugs. Yeah, we got it. The hot fix. And, so far, it's good. I didn't have too many issues with the previous patch, but I also didn't really play much aside from Siege Force and last patch. So. Data, how's it been for you since you've been probably the most active of the four of us?
For the most part, it's been pretty good. I was doing some UGF missions with a friend last night, and I don't know if the servers were just having some problems, but there's still a bug where the UGF elevators will duplicate, and you
Really?
well one time it happened. He couldn't hit any of the buttons, but I could, and when I hit the button, the elevator separated, and I went down, and he was
And
still
he
stuck at the
didn't,
top,
yeah.
and he couldn't. Yeah,
That's
and
been a
I'm
bug
kind of
for
wondering if
years.
I'm kind of wondering if that's because like there's two missions that have overlapped on the same place, so it's like has two copies. In any case, they said that they fixed that issue, but there's still something that's causing it to happen.
I mean, it's in the known news. So.
Okay, maybe they haven't fully fixed it then. Well, clearly they haven't.
It's a bug I have not encountered in a while, but I used to encounter it all the time back in like 3.8.
Yeah.
Like it killed bunker missions for me for like the better half of a year, if not more.
Yeah, I mean you can't do anything when that happens. You just have to leave it.
Yep.
Other
So
than
what's your
that,
guys?
I can't think of any other really glaring, irritating issues that I've run into recently.
What's your guys' take on the whole SPK issue?
You mean the law system that they're planning to implement?
Yeah, where they're basically going to take away the ability of anyone to get rid of your crime stat anywhere else but there.
But,
so essentially, that'll be the only place you can go. And I guess what I've been hearing is the controversy is that essentially there's so many of these bugs in the systems right now that you get a crime stat for air quotes looking at the elevator wrong, and you got new players coming in who can't even afford to to pay off their crime stat, who don't have any experience, who are going to be forced into combat in order to go clear their stat, their crime stat. And on top of that, you basically, if you're going in there to clear your crime stat, you're going to have to kill representatives at
people and get an
SPK,
even
which is
larger
going to
wrap.
raise. Sorry, go ahead, Cam.
No, I was agreeing with you.
Oh, yeah. Basically, you're creating a higher crime stat than you're trying to fix just by going into SPK. So a lot of people are saying that this is a really bad design that they're trying to implement right now, just because of all the bugs that are there and the lack of any kind of knowledge by new players on, what to be careful of, what to avoid, as far as getting crime stats, and then, how to actually play the game, if they have the crime stat.
Yeah, one thing I did go and think that this is a two-parter reason at least for why they're doing it. One is just, yeah, we're kind of sort of throwing something in here to start fleshing out the law system, because that hasn't really gotten any TLC since it was first thrown in here. So okay. The other part of it is that they're adding a couple new things to the prison gameplay. And so I think this is partially to go and purposefully funnel people into prison, with either going to SPK for the jump town light kind of thing in there. Because if you go and take out enough of the regular guards there, eventually like a lieutenant will spawn. You kill him, you get a data pad with a code on there, you punch that into the machine at SPK, it starts going and throwing boxes out, some of which might be valuable, some of which aren't. Which some criminal players are definitely going to see that as, hey, if we can hold this down, throw boxes into a ship or something, or throw them on an airlock at a ship to drop down and throw them on one real quick, whatever. That's going to be some easy money. Potentially.
But do you think that's a good thing to be forcing? Because I hear what you're saying, but Jumptown is kind of a volunteer system in the sense that you have to want to go there. But if you're tying this into crime stats, and the game is super buggy right now where people are randomly getting, crime stats for unknown or just computer glitch problems, you're forcing
forced in
the gameplay. And that, do you think that's a good thing?
I mean, unfortunately, like, I don't think it's a good thing, but unfortunately, CIG has always kind of been that way in terms of gameplay, in that we are going to make these negative consequences in the game. We're going to make your gameplay worse if you don't do what it is that we want you to test, whatever that might be. I'm actually really surprised, like with refueling. I was really surprised we didn't see a huge nerf in the fuel capacities of ships to push people into using the refueling system. Because that does seem to be their MO, at least at this point. So is it what I want to see? No, I want to see more positive reinforcement for using gameplay and testing things they want, as opposed to negative reinforcement of, here's these rewards, here's these bonuses, here's these missions that have you do it, versus, hey, we're going to go and force this gameplay, we're going to remove or restrict these things here to get you to do the stuff we want you to. Now, one thing I did hear other people kind of talking about this, and I think one idea that might have some merit, at least once one or two other things are put in, is keeping the current data centers where you can hack your crime stat away only for crime stats 1, 2, or 1, 2, and 3, and then making it so if you want to remove a crime stat 4 or 5, so the serious shit, you got to go right to the source for that. You got to go to Security Plus Korea. The caveat, of course, of that being, you would have to either be able to sneak around or take out the guards in a non-lethal way. Otherwise, just killing the 8 guards they got at those data centers, you're going to have a crime stat 4 or 5 already from that.
Yeah, I would agree with what you're saying there. I personally think that the whole crime thing, like the current crime system, needs to go away. Like,
yeah.
I think they need to go to the what you call it, your reputation system. in the sense
Yes.
that, because I heard a content creator brought up a good point, and basically he was saying you need to like how do I say this correctly? So let's say you're a player and you've been working on your reputation with let's say the advocacy, and you've been doing a really good job, and you've worked your way through. I'm just picking a random number here for the sake of argument here, but let's say you've made it through 15 of their missions, and you're 3/4 of the way up their progression ladder to having like the ultimate reputation with these guys. But on one mission, things just go wrong, and you end up killing, say, one of their undercover operatives that you weren't supposed to kill. In the current system, okay, boom, instantaneously you've got this bad, this crime stat that you're going to have to go deal with, and it's going to throw a wrench in your plans. But if you had a reputation system, maybe you fuck up once, it says, okay, you drop down a few bars in your reputation system, but because you were working on for the advocacy, doing one of their missions, it's not a crime. You lost
Or
your
you get some
reputation.
leniency.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, hey, it's like a cop in the real world. A cop accidentally shoots somebody, he doesn't immediately go to prison. It's hey, this is a one-time thing. Something, he fucked up. Maybe he even gets dismissed from the force, but he doesn't go to jail instantly, unless he's got a proven track record of making these serious mistakes. In which case, maybe it's the third time or the second time he's done it. Then it's like, hey, you know what? We warned you once. This has happened again. Now you're actually going to go. You're going to trial. You're going to jail, kind of a thing. I think that's what they need to bring into the game, is more of a reputation. What's your past record show of how you're doing things?
I think
Right.
that makes sense too with factions in general. That
Yeah,
let's say I'm working with the Nine Tails and we're doing some criminal shit, and boops, I accidentally go and pops one of our allies here or something. Ah, shit. Ah, fuck it, whatever. Okay, hey, it's made them think less of me. I've certainly lost some reputation with them, but I'm not shoot on sight either yet. Because, hey, we've worked a lot of missions here. Ah, shit happens. Hey, dude, you can't be doing that shit.
yeah. And if you do it enough times, they're like, he's just not trustworthy with these important missions. So you can continue to be, we'll continue to send you to the minor drug labs for pickups, but you're not going to get the big missions.
I'll go back to the original question of whether the changes to Korea are good or not. Here's my 2 cents. The criticism that it can be punishing for new players, I think, is it holds some weight. Just because there are definitely bugs, and even for people who know what they're doing, that get a crime stat and can't pay it off or don't want to pay it off, and don't excuse me, don't want to take the time to serve the sentence or whatever. It it does feel like you don't really have any options. Normally, I would go to Korea instead of trying to go to any of the other security outposts, specifically for the reason that you mentioned before. If you go to those other security outposts, you literally have to wipe the floor with everybody. So if you had a CS1, by the end, you've got like 10 homicides, you're CS5. Everybody knows you're there at that point, and you got to wait for what, like 30 minutes to finally clear everything, waiting on the process.
Yeah, if
Yeah,
I may, it is easier to defend those locations, but the thing is, most people do end up going to Korea anyways, just to avoid all of that. So, because they know, hey,
Yeah.
I can just go to Korea, no one's there, and I can hack my crime stat pretty quickly. By the time someone does come, I'll either have hacked my crime stat away already, or I'll just kill that one guy, and it's just one extra crime stat to hack versus one extra homicide to hack away versus all these others. Hell, you don't have to kill him.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be homicide because you can now down players. So you knock him down, hack the crime stat, and then when you're done, you can kill him back up, assuming you're a guy.
So all that said, something needed to be done with Korea because it's just an empty place there. There's almost no gameplay. It doesn't feel alive. It feels like just dead, empty station. So I'm glad that they're doing something with it. It'll make it interesting for the people who like combat. They have another place where they can go and stir up trouble or whatever.
Yeah.
The criticism or maybe even just the idea that CIG is doing it on purpose to force people into prison to test out the new stuff. I'm not sure I believe that. The fact that there are bugs that cause crime stats, I mean, that's just because of where we are in development. From a developing standpoint, it doesn't make sense to hold back a feature because there are bugs that are going to cause problems for people that are playing the game in an alpha state.
You,
I mean,
okay.
you're
Question on that.
yeah, go ahead.
I agree with the the broad concept of what you're saying. As far as if you got a system, if you're developing a game and you've worked out a system, mechanic, it makes sense to implement it just to see how it plays and what you need to fix with it. But at the same time, if you're doing that in a public setting, don't you think that there should at least be some thought given to, is the system ready to be implemented right this moment with the current setup of the game, or should we hold off till X mechanic is also in place, that it's going, in other words, let's say you've got two mechanics that are going to work together. Just because you have one mechanic ready to go, does that mean that you should implement it even though you don't have the other mechanic that's gonna need to operate together? Because to me, it seems like they're only implementing parts of a mechanic, and it's going to have a negative perception impact on a percentage of the community. I won't go into majority or minorities here, but a large portion of the gaming community is going to have a negative effect from this, rightly or wrongly, on what their expectations of the game are. But don't you think that there should be at least some thought given to that process from the devs, that like, hey, we got this ready, but maybe this isn't the most opportune time to implement this at this moment?
From development from a development standpoint, I think it makes less sense to have a large chunk of content that had this development team working on just sitting there gathering dust. I mean, I think that they have gone through that. They clearly have a plan, right? We don't get to see it because they can't let general backers see it, because then people think, oh, this is what's going to happen. Things change as people cry. Nobody wants to have to deal with that shit. So I think they have a pretty good plan. They have their schedule. They have all their teams set up. This is what you're going to be working on. This is how long we think it's going to take. It doesn't make sense to me that you would have a team working on something for 3 months or whatever, and then at the end of those 3 months you say, well, there's so many bugs and problems. And I'm not even going to say they're like really big problems. They're problems that I think most
Gameplay
backers that have
glitches.
been in the game that have had to deal with since we've been playing the game. They're annoyances, but it's an alpha state game. I know that's always the fallback, but it's true. And I think it makes more sense to get it out there, see what happens. Put it in the
Okay.
game, start gathering data, see what works, see what doesn't. You can start gathering that information while the other teams are working on other bits of the pieces that come together. Because the way this game is being built, we're never going to get 0 to 100 featured, because everything is so intertwined. You just can't do that. If you're going to hold back these little bitty chunks, by the time they decide we're going to release it, well, then instead of having this one bit of area that you gather feedback and data to make everything's better, you throw it all out there, and now you have this huge, massive mess of problems and issues. And I think that makes it even more complicated to figure out in the end than it does introducing it piecemeal like they are.
Okay. I'm asking it from a point of view of I think shades of gray, and I agree with what you're saying, but I also think that they sometimes do have a tendency to just implement because it's there and not thinking about what the larger state of impact will be. But that's
Yeah,
just my
but
opinion.
that I don't know. In some ways, I think that's kind of short-sighted because I mean, we think of it as the player experience because enjoy playing the game. It's going to be what we experience, but they have to look at it from a development perspective, and
True.
probably more
But
so from a developer than from a player because they've got all this content that they have to get out. They've got to get it done, and at some point, because of where we're at with the development of the game, they just have to say, well, this is going to be bad for a while, but it'll get better. So
yeah,
yeah, I think the unfortunate reality is when they release things, they're going to be broken and there's going to be lots of bugs and there's just no way to get around that.
I I wouldn't have a problem with that if they would openly communicate that.
That's what a lot of this comes down to is just better communication.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also the criticisms that everything's going to be punishing and bad. I mean, how
That
many people were whining it and crying when they were going to do the ship weapon bounce?
okay,
Everybody's, oh, this is going to be terrible. It's gonna change everything, and it did change everything. But I wouldn't say it's terrible.
I may have
I would
used the
say, yeah, go ahead.
sorry, go ahead, finish up what you're gonna say.
I was just gonna say, you know, manage your expectations. I think it's unreasonable to expect that it's just going to be all doom and gloom and terrible. It's probably not going to be really, really great, and it is going to be a pretty big change. But we also don't know what other things they have planned and how they're going to tie into this. Clearly, there is a plan, and they wouldn't just change the way that we do hacking with our crime stats, and they are working on the actual hacking gameplay. So I think there's some implications to how that's going to function in the future, also. And we just don't know about it yet because they have to keep everything on the down low until they've got it all ironed out.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I just want to interject that maybe I used some wrong verbiage when I was initially asking the question. I didn't mean like like using the words terrible and horrible. I don't mean that. I mean I mean more like players are just going to have a frustrating experience, especially those who haven't been around for a long time. And there is a large influx of the new. I would almost say there's a larger group of newer players than there are the old time backers who are still around. And so when I'm saying negative impacts to gameplay, I don't mean it in the like the ultimate detractor term for that. I just mean that it's not a pleasant gaming experience at the time. Maybe frustrating experience is a better way to put it. And I just worry
Yeah.
about how much that turns people that newer base off that hasn't been around to learn all the ins and outs of you know the bugginess. So I just want to interject that.
Yeah, when I was talking about like the negative people out there talking, I didn't mean you specifically. I meant some of the other people that have a pretty big voice in the community. That are that seem to be more negative and critical than I think the team warrants. And also to your point about the new players and stuff, I mean, do you remember when we were new players, right? We get features that come out and we try them and everything was broken and terrible. But at the same time, we still had fun because
True.
like part of the game back then was figuring out what didn't work and how to do things by getting around the problem or fixing the problem. So
Yeah.
I totally understand what you mean about it being punishing maybe for some new players, but at the same time, I think in a way that's why the Star Citizen community at large is kind of such an open and helpful group because it weeds out all the people who just want to cause chaos and problems. And at this stage, they just don't have time to try to deal with the bugs. For them, it's not that much fun. So I don't know. Positive and negative, I guess.
To some degree, but we've still seen. I mean, even look back at fucking 3.0 and even earlier, you would still have people who would go and pad RAM and shit like that until CIG said, "Hey, you do that, we reserve the right to fucking ban your ass." And people were like, "Oh shit, okay." But you're still seeing bad actors. I mean, as soon as medical gameplay came on, like first day, first hour, you have people going and trying to overdose people all over the place and stuff like that. So it's like you definitely do have bad actors here. And not to say that some of the bugs don't go and push them to go, maybe I won't go and screw with things because I'm getting hit by, stairs killing me too. But I think we're only going to see that aspect get worse until we have effective in-game consequences for that type of behavior. Because until we do, like even right now, prison is no punishment. If I go and I find a minor and I go and shove a size 9 torpedo into his mole, he's just lost 5 hours of work. And let's just say that he flies right at me as I'm firing the missile and the wreck destroys my Eclipse at the same time. So he's dead, I'm dead. We'll assume I'll go to prison. Prison. And I've got a 4-hour wait here. Cool. I'll just log off, and as soon as I log back in the next day, I'm already out of prison. I am ready to go and claim my ship and get right back at it and do it all over again. Whereas that guy lost 5 hours of work that he has to go through and do that much, maybe more, maybe less, but it's right now, in terms of consequences, it far outweighs if I want to be a bad actor. I can do a hell of a lot more to screw with people's gameplay than what I'll suffer for that. And until that balance changes in some way, and I don't necessarily know if the Security Post Korea changes at this point will really do that. But until that balance changes, you're going to have a whole lot of bullshit going on.
I have a question. Go ahead. Sorry.
I wasn't saying that there weren't bad people. That was just like a side thought that I had about, the game is difficult right now. So there is a large portion of people who would, the more carefree, don't give a shit, that aren't going to waste any time playing the game because it's not in an easy to play state. So I would, take that for what it is. It could be bad. It could be good. In my opinion, I think it weeds out some of the more annoying, irritating group, like the more toxic type of people that are generally found in large games. We don't have to deal with that at the moment. We will eventually, but it was just a side thought.
I do have a question that Cam brought up or led me to, and I'm just curious. There's no right or wrong answer to this, in my opinion. I'm just curious what your guys' take on this. I've heard it thrown around. Currently, as Cam just stated, right now, you get a crime stat, you got to go to prison, you got to, X amount of minutes or hours to serve. You can either do the gameplay or you can decide, hey, I'm going to log out and I'll log back in tomorrow and I can continue my gameplay. I'm out of prison. How would you guys react if they said, when you have a prison term, you have to serve it in game time? In other words, you can log out, but you log back in and you're still going to, just picking a random number here, you're still going to have 4 hours until you've served 4 hours logged in. You still have that prison time. What would be your guys' reception to that?
So if I recall, that was the original plan for prison, where you would not. Right. Which honestly, I think I'm all for that idea. Not because if you're in prison, you need to serve your time, blah blah. No, just because if I'm in prison, say, because obviously the sentences are not going to be like, oh, you're now in prison for a year. You're now in prison for 48 hours, 72 hours, and stuff like that, because it's still a game. At least this way, it's when I'm logged in, At least this way, it's not like I have a 48-hour sentence, but I can only play once a week. You're never really actually going to serve that sentence. Whereas this way, you can actually experience the gameplay in prison, whether you
And that's the
wanted to
thing
or
too,
not.
is there's going to be gameplay, and they've already talked about with the change with Security Post Korea. They're also adding, I believe, a couple other missions into prison, looking at an alternative escape route. So you'd have at least 2 of those. Like, prison is meant to be, and that's one thing too. That's part of the problem in terms of bad actors, is that prison itself is not just a punishment. It is also another gameplay area. So how do you balance this out of prison is gameplay, but also prison is your punishment for doing bad things? There has to be some balance there. And part of that balance might be just that, hey, when you're in prison, you're not out in the universe doing whatever the hell, so effectively removing you from the main gameplay world here. But with the change to the Security Post Korea, one aspect of it that I've kind of thought on is that right now, if you were to go and remove your crime stat, whether it's a bunker or whether it's Security Post Korea you go to, wherever you're going, as it is right now, if I want to remove my crime stat, there is nothing that stops me to do so. Like, sure, if you go to a bunker, maybe one of the guards gets lucky and wings you. Sure, maybe you'll have a bounty hunter on you. Maybe. But even still, the kind of default assumption, at least as I've seen when I've gotten crime stats before, which admittedly, I don't really play a criminal player here, but I'll get one occasionally, rightly or wrongly. But when I've gone to go and remove that crime stat, realistically, nothing really stops me. And I think that's bad gameplay. Like, it should be something of a challenge / risk to go and remove that crime stat. It shouldn't just be, hey, I killed a whole bunch of people, or I rammed some ships, I blew something up, whatever. And, oh, let me just go and do this one little chore, and hey, I'm back to being a goody two shoes and I can go wherever I want without being fired at. It should be challenging, it should have risk associated with it, just as remaining a criminal player has certain risks associated with it, because at least the intent is, you have chosen this path of criminality. This is playing the game, as CIG and Chris Roberts himself have said. If you want to be a criminal, that path is open to you. That is a choice you can make, but it's playing the game on hard mode. Like, when we have reputation, if you have a bad enough rep, some areas you'll get shot on sight, even though you don't have an active bounty. This is intended. But
So, for me, the short answer is no. I don't think we should have it in the game right now. And the reason is that the law system is not mature enough. Like, we've talked about it before. I have very strong opinions for the way I think career criminals should be treated, but there's so many systems that still need to be put in the game. Most of it has to do with like tracking. So, they've said
Now,
previously that for an individual, if you hack a system and clear your crime stat, that's going to get recorded. If it happens, once, then it's just a glitch in the system. But if it happens 2, 3, 5, 10 times, there are going to be repercussions for that, because clearly something's going on that's not correct. So
have they said that?
it's
I don't remember hearing
yeah,
them ever talking about them tracking you hacking your crime stat.
yeah. Um they talked about there would be a record of like the character and the sentences, and if there's a noticeable like if the sentence gets changed too many times, then it'll throw up a flag or something. And it's like, well, this person was supposed to go to prison and they got let off 3 times. There's something wrong in the system, and that would cause something else to happen. I'm not sure they
I've
talk
never heard
about
that.
what could happen.
Not
Yeah,
not to say I don't believe you, just I have not come across that information.
it
I'm
was a
gonna
long time
throw this.
ago.
I'm going to throw this one thing in here, and I'm not. This isn't an attack,
Nope. Too late.
but Data, your statement just now argues against your previous statement about implementing gameplay, which is you said they shouldn't implement it right now because the other systems aren't in place to support it.
No, your question was, should they make the prison sentence be game time instead of real time? And my answer to that is, I don't think so.
Right.
Well, you don't
And
think
you
so
said
right now, or you don't think so?
because the other mechanics aren't in place right now to support it, right?
Well, yeah, because the loss, it doesn't mean that they don't have a system in game to deal with it. It's just the time served, I don't think makes sense
What
to
if we're
make
not
it game
talking
time.
right now? What if we're talking down the line?
All I'm saying
Down the
is
line,
your original argument for why the topic we were talking about earlier, which was the implementation of SPK. You're saying they should implement it anyways, even if there are bugs that are going to cause the gameplay to be frustrating. Because if they got the system ready, they shouldn't wait until other mechanics are in place. But then on this topic, you're saying they should wait.
I know it sounds like a contradiction, but I don't see them as being equal.
Okay.
The prison system right now is already in the game. You're just asking about the difference between time served in game versus the time served being real time. So if you get a crime stat, you can just log out for 24 hours and come back and then you're free. I don't see that being the same as putting in a whole game system like Korea. I mean, they're two separate things in my mind.
Okay. Like I said, I'm not trying to attack you. I'm just trying to
No, I know that
clarify.
I figured you were going to bring it up because it does sound like a contradiction. But
Okay.
for me,
Now, what
I
about
don't
way
think
down the line here? Would you see prison time so we're saying when these other supporting systems are in place and everything is much more fleshed out, should prison time pass when you are logged out, or should it go and be, if your sentence is 4 hours, you have to be in game 4 hours?
Well,
well,
Cam, I have
first
a question.
off, go ahead.
Well, this question I think is going to take us in a different direction. So go ahead and finish what you're going to say, and I'll ask.
Okay, so first of all, I would separate the types of crimes, and Kleischer is a rehabilitation. It's not a prison. I mean, in my mind, it's a rehabilitation facility. It's not like a hardcore criminal prison
Forced
area.
mining.
Sorry. Yeah. It's
So
not
for
prison,
me, I would
forced labor. That's all.
Yeah, or I would separate
It's called community service.
facilities, right? You're going to have your low criminal people. They're going to go in places like Kleischer, the rehabilitation.
Like
You have your
smugglers.
you have your other kind of prisoners. They're going to go medium, and then you got high security, blah blah blah. Spread it out.
Your murder
At that
hobos.
point, then yes, I would say game time.
Okay. No, and I haven't heard that idea before, but I do kind of like the idea of there being different tiers, so to speak, of prison. So let's say if you go with your the dreaded murder hobo, that's your title, and you just go around just murdering as many people as you can, and eventually your bounty hunter gets caught up to you, or the UEE goes and gets you, whatever. Hey, we're taking you all the way over to our highest security prison, to where, yes, you can, air quotes, can escape, but you'd have to have about 20 or 30 people working together alongside some very large ships to go and do it. Otherwise, you're sitting here effectively if again, you're a murder hobo, you've murdered hundreds of people here until you got caught up with, maybe that's character death.
Well, they've
Yeah,
gotten
and
support
maybe your
for it
character gets
in lore.
executed.
It's in your star map. There's a system that actually has a planet that's dedicated to being nothing but a prison planet.
Oh, so it's what was it from the Chronicles of Riddick?
Yeah, basically.
Pretty much.
It's one of the systems. I don't remember
Crematoria?
off the top of my head right
Yeah.
now. Crematoria.
I think that was in Chronicles of Riddick, to where the planet.
Yeah,
is
they
a
had a whole
prison.
planet that was a prison, and escape was pretty much you could get out of the prison, but you would die on the surface of the planet before you ever escaped out of the system.
For many reasons.
Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't go that level with the implementation in the lore, but it's basically the whole planet for Star Citizen, the whole planet. I can't remember what the name is. Somebody who can look up the star map quickly would be able to figure it out. But it's basically the whole planet is a prison system. I don't know if they've like dug it into the ground kind of a thing, but I know there's supposed to be like a big fortification,
Yeah,
complex
I'm down for
on
that.
it.
Because also
Uh,
too, let's say if your gang is based out of Pyro, and yeah, you're all big and tough, cool, that's great. Well, we just hauled you halfway across the entire galaxy map here. So it's again, if you don't want to serve your sentence, however long that might be, and honestly, I would be willing to entertain the idea, because again, escape is always going to be an option. It might not be a great option, might be a sucky option, but it's a option. I'd be open to say that, hey, for again, we're talking like the worst of the worst here. So we're talking players that are going and just murdering every single person they can go and get their crosshair on here and getting away with it until they finally get caught. I'd be fine with seeing some of these prison sentences that would be months. If you are that bad, in other words, really, in other words, that there would not necessarily be caps, like a timer cap on murder. So every single murder you do, criminal murder here, that's another, let's say, 10 hours that you're in prison. So if you just keep murdering people, that time is going to stack up. Whereas with other crimes, there might be like, okay, once you have 15 instances of vehicular damage, okay, that's where it maxes out. So it wouldn't matter if you have 15 or 1,500. It's going to be the same amount of punishment there for some crimes. Same with maybe
But
smuggling.
there has to be some kind of cap on it because
I mean,
we're
I'm
talking
fine with there being
a
a cap,
video game
but
here. But
yeah,
there are other ways to make going to prison punishing way more punishing than just adding extra time. And we've talked about it before, but
so
there
data,
could be like, yeah, go ahead.
sorry. No, you're bringing up actually the question that I was going to ask before. That when I had said go ahead and finish what you're thinking, which is we've already kind of touched on it, but what's your guys' take on, the CIG has already said, they want to make gameplay out of everything. So we're creating a prison system that has gameplay involved. And if you think about it, so right now, prison is a punishment for lawful peoples because they don't want to spend time in prison. So if they do something bad, they don't. They're going to avoid doing things bad because they don't want to go and do that gameplay because they don't like that gameplay. But for criminals, they want that. Like there's going to be missions in there. So my question is, how do you create? We're seeing how they're creating the gameplay and the punishment kind of joined together for the lawful people, but how do you create a punishment system for the non-lawful people? Because right now there's no punishment for them. They're getting gameplay. What would be
Well,
how would you guys
it depends
implement?
on what you it depends on what you consider punishment, right? There's always going to
Well,
be that
that's
certain subset of people that just enjoy killing in a game and causing mischief and mayhem.
right.
They're anarchists and they like chaos. So
But how
for
is somebody who
those
picks
kinds
the
of
pirate?
people, it's not about creating a punishing environment for them. It's about separating them as much as possible from the other groups of people who are just trying to do things like mining, keeping them away for large portions of time. So it's not every time you go out into a system, you instantly get killed by some dude that's just out there to have fun and cause problems. Because you're never going to be able to punish them enough to make them change their behavior because they enjoy that kind of gameplay. And I don't think you should make it You have to make it still be enjoyable to play. You just give them a different road or different street to play on than all the other people.
Well, to some degree, I disagree here because all gameplay types should be viable in that you can play the game in that way. Bearing in mind, if I am just running around and I just target every single miner I can and blow them to smithereens continually, that is ruining other people's gameplay. And the time and effort they have invested into prepping their ship, looking for these rocks. Okay, I've mined the rocks and bam, oh, I'm dead. Well, fuck. There has to be as I noted earlier, there has to be some kind of a balance between the I don't know if it's necessarily going to be time investment, but there has to be some kind of balance between the investment of a player that's going, hey, I'm just trying to go out, mine, get some good resources here, bring them back, earn some money here, versus the guy going, hey, I just want to kill that bitch because how dare they be mining where I'm near? There has
Yeah,
to be a
but
balance
see,
here because if there isn't, that miner is going to go, hey, fuck this shit. I'm not playing this again because this is unbalanced.
I agree 100%. But what I'm saying is there's going to be people who don't care about going to prison or serving time.
Yes, and so
So
there has to be
the
punishment.
the consequence, I'm not going to say it's a punishment. The consequence of being that type of person and going to prison is that you no longer have access to any of the sellers and traders that a normal person would have access to. You lose all that.
Okay.
You have to only go black market. You can't go to some systems because you're a criminal. You're not allowed there. If you go there, you get attacked by everybody.
Yeah.
You're broke.
And
Like all your
one other
AUC
thing,
is confiscated. So you're basically starting from zero, from scratch. If you want to go out there and kill people again, you've got to do these game loops that are off in the shadows that have their own risks associated with them to build up enough money to buy ship, buy weapons, to get you to the point where you could do that again. So
That's
it's
what I'm talking
punishing
about.
in the sense that there's all these extra hoops you have to jump through. It doesn't mean you can't get there, but
yes.
the means to get there is down a different avenue than everybody else's. So it's separating them out from the people who just want to have fun. So
Yes.
those people, they still have an avenue to do the things that they want to do. They just can't do them in the same way. So in that way, it is punishing, but it's still gameplay, it's still game loops. There's
Yes.
all the
No, I
interactions
agree.
with like
That's what
the
I was
seedy
asking.
characters. Yeah,
That
they have to go the criminal route to get back to the point where they want to go kill innocent people. So it doesn't mean they can't. It just means that the time that it takes to get back to that point is going to be really large.
it's the
Yes. No, that's
deterrence factor for the criminal
yes.
side. That's what I was getting at. Like what kind of mechanics? So it sounds like you just answered that in how
Yeah,
you're
no, I think
describing
that
that
was
it's
really
going to
well.
limit their options.
Right. For some people, that's not a deterrent, right? They're going to do it anyway
Mm.
because they don't care.
True.
But it will be a
But
deterrent for
just
the people who
because
don't
they're
want
on
to
a
have to deal with
forced
that struggle.
cooldown effectively because of that. And even if they have and I was on the leak server earlier and some of this stuff had come up and someone was like, well, hey, what if they have an alt account? And it's like, even with an alt account, if reputation is what you're basing at least some of this stuff on, like, hey, I have pissed off the UEE or Stanton or the Hurston Planet government so much that I'm shoot on sight. Okay. Well, hey, I mean, go, okay. Well, he's over in prison or he's over at Grim Hex. Let me switch over to character number 2. If I'm doing the same stuff, I'm going to get the same rep. And eventually, character 2 and character 1 are both persona non grata here.
Well,
Sure,
also,
you could
Cam,
say they could, yeah.
add to that. Think of this, and I'm not trying to cut you off. I'm trying
Yeah,
to
no,
just
no,
add to what you're saying. Think about this. If a person has a just for broad terms of this argument, the person is a criminal, has a high criminal rank, and they log out and they go log in with another account of a person that doesn't have that criminal rating, and they because of what they know, they do things like, oh well, I'll use my good guy to transfer funds to my bad guy. I think the reputation system should should track those kind of associations. And if a good person starts doing business with a bad person, that good person should start to get a shady reputation, and that would help cancel out people doing that kind of account thing. Because if you do it too many times, guess what? Your alt account is just as dirty as your primary, bad guy.
I
Am I
like
making
the
sense?
idea. It would
Yeah.
need a lot of careful balancing, just because, let's say, for
Yeah.
example, I'm I'm out in my Pisces. I run out of fuel. Ah, darn, I fucked up. Hey, can anyone help me? I'm stuck way out here. And let's say our bad guy goes and says, "Hey, I'm gonna do my one good deed of the year." Goes
Right.
over, flies over in his Cutlass Black, says, "Hey, yeah, I'll just go. Yeah, I don't get any fuel, but I'll just go and pull you back." Pulls you back. Cool, great. We shake hands. Hey, thanks. Here's 20,000. Thank you very much. I really needed that because I got my box of goods, whatever it is. He saved my bacon there, and I go off, not knowing this is the worst guy in the entire game who just did his one good deed of the year.
Yeah.
Should
No,
that
it
reflect
wouldn't be
negatively on
triggered by
me?
one-time events. It would be
Okay,
something that
you're
you would have
talking
to
cumulative events.
yeah, in other words, reputation. In other words, you're starting to show a trend, a track record of consistency. How
Yeah.
come this one player account is always dealing with this one guy, and it's been, cash transfers of X amount of dollars, multiple times? There's a link here. And it builds off that. So yeah, absolutely. There should never be a one-time, you know, 0 set to 1 in the computer because you did that one transaction. That should never be the case. Exactly as you
Yeah.
described. Like there's just too many scenarios. But over time, if there's a repetition, and that's where I mean that, yeah, sure, you could get away with it with your alt account a couple of times, but if you start to show a consistency with it, that's how it starts to slowly shade your alt account into that criminal. I won't even say that. It just shows that it starts to associate that alt account with whatever that alt account is consistently interacting with, is all I'm getting at.
Yep.
I
No,
think that would solve that.
I think it's a good idea too, and because I've already heard of plenty of people saying, "Oh yeah, I'll have a good character and evil character, and the good character is going to help the evil character because
Yeah.
my evil character is my main one, and my good character is just to do those things that the evil character can't." No, I think that would be, if they're always passing gear and items and setting stuff over there like a mule. Yeah, that should, at least to some degree, and depending on, maybe it's like, well, hey, if you use these services here, this stuff isn't tracked or isn't tracked as much, but it costs more. So if you want to send stuff anonymously, you can, but you're paying 5 times the price,
I don't
Yeah.
know
maybe.
how much sense it makes to go this route. Okay, so bear with me. This
Hmm.
is just a
Yeah.
thought
Yep.
experiment. So for
Uh-oh.
one, if you take the way security services work already, generally, if they're looking at someone, then they do all the background research, they go through financials and stuff, and they can pretty much figure out whether or not that person has known ties with nefarious people, right?
Yeah.
So the thing that Cam is talking about, I think, would go the same way. If you're funneling money, weapons, armor, equipment, whatever, to somebody who's really bad, then you just get flagged in the system. Maybe players can't see it, maybe players can, with ties to known criminals, and that would affect your reputation and ability to do business with like fully reputable people, security, whatever. And since everything in the game is an entity, and it has to get tracked by the backend system, there is potential for everything that you buy, weapons, guns, ammo, whatever, ships, all of that is going to have a unique identifier in the system. So there is the possibility that if you buy a gun from the UEE security because your character has enough rep for them, and you pass that gun on to a criminal then uses that weapon to kill someone and is caught with it, that weapon can now be tracked back to you, and there could be some implication or some investigation, or somehow that could possibly hurt your
The
reputation
implication.
if it's found out that you constantly are passing gear and it's constantly being tracked back to you, being used in criminal
Yeah.
efforts and stuff like that.
No, I
I support
agree.
that. I'm all for that. I
Now,
mean, that's how the real world works, right? Like, if you're a gun dealer and you keep buying, used police guns, and then suddenly, you know, there's, your guns suddenly keep popping up at gang related shootings. Eventually the cops are going to be like, hey, they're going to come to you and go, hey, this isn't a one, we didn't just find one gun, but we found like, 7
dozens.
guns in the gang, gang hands involved in shootouts. What's going on here? What kind of business are you running? And then you start getting investigated. Like, that totally makes sense to me for gameplay.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
Now,
one time it could happen. Twice is a coincidence. 3 and up, it's like, yeah, there's something going on here.
Now there does need to be, though, if that kind of a thing was implemented, there does need to be something on the player end to warn them of this. So it's not like, oh yeah, here's my good buddy Fred, and Fred's always treated me well because hey, Fred likes you. Fred sees you as a buddy. But Fred hates everyone else. And so to you, you're just helping out your buddy Fred because as far as you're aware, Fred's always doing this. You don't see him much, you don't talk to him much, but hey, he sends you something, you send him something, cool stuff. And you don't realize Fred's also a giant fucking asshole and goes and murders a whole bunch of people. There wouldn't be something player facing to kind of go, hey, by the way,
What if
you're losing rep here.
Why not have the ability for the player to either hire, i.e., expend money, hire somebody, i.e., like a bounty hunter or a private investigator, like, hey, can you do a background check on me and tell me what you find, kind of a thing. And then that player would become aware, but at the same time having to expend resources to get that awareness of what their current standing is, and that would give them the opportunity, if they've, like you said, not knowing, have been making mistakes or causing damage to their reputation, whichever direction they want it to go. They now have that ability to kind of go, oh, maybe I shouldn't be doing this because this is affecting me. So it gives them that opportunity, but it's not readily apparent. They have to make some effort to get to gain that knowledge. That's one option. Or
it could get really, really complicated really quickly. I think a better
Yeah,
option
I'm just
would
like,
be to,
they would never even know. They don't know what's happening that's causing that. They just know, hey, I got really bad rep. Well, what the heck? I'm only acting with other players that, to my knowledge, are all nice. They have no
no,
idea what's
that's
going on.
what you're buying. Is you're buying that record that shows you, like, this.
Oh,
You've been
because of these
tracked
50
as having,
transactions
yeah,
of
you
A to B,
now,
A to C, A to whatever.
the report would show that you've been flagged as having 6 interactions with this negative person. I'm just picking
Okay.
negative for the time being.
So
but,
actually detailed, not just you have bad rep, but here's why you have bad rep.
yeah, exactly. Maybe it does
Okay.
detail at a surface level for you to know that you're being, like, to know why you're being tracked, but maybe it doesn't tell you exactly, down to the exact serial number of the weapon that you traded, but it just says, you've traded weapons with these known bad people X amount of times, and that's why X organization is keeping an eye on you, kind of a thing.
Okay.
Like, that's what you get in your report. So it gives you that opportunity to go, I probably shouldn't associate with this type of person, or this person is the reason I'm having these negative effects on my reputation. That would give the player that ability to kind of one, change their behavior pattern if they don't like it, or two, buy into it some more. Or maybe now they know who they want to do
Who let
business
the
with, if that's
dogs
the
out?
avenue they want to play.
so a more simple, straightforward way to communicate it, I think, would be to one, have just a database that has all users and their current reputation, and it just be tied into the back end. So it's basically accessing their profile. It shows you what orgs that they have listed, what they have redacted, and their current reputation that's known. That way you can just say, well, this guy's offering to sell me something, look up his name. He seems reputable. I'll take a chance. If you end up making some bad deals with people and, it's going to affect your reputation, then it'd probably be pretty easy just to have like an automated security system send you a message over mobiGlass saying that you've been flagged for having uh, these kind of interactions with these people, and continued interactions are going to have a negative effect on your reputation, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I just don't want to go and see people getting both blindsided by this. And again, like, let's say if I'm working with my buddy Fred, and again, to me, Fred's the nicest person ever. To everyone else, Fred's an asshole. To some degree, yeah, that should be raising up red flags. On the other hand, though, again, to my interactions with Fred, I've never seen him do anything bad.
Well, that's where the
So
automated
it's
system would come in. So you're having a good time with Fred, you're doing things, and then you just get a message from the UEE saying that we've noticed that you've been doing things with player Fred. Fred is a known blah blah blah, shows his reputation, and you go, oh, okay, well maybe I should think about what I'm doing with Fred. Maybe I should look him up and see what his reputation actually is. And then you can say, oh, Fred's not really a good guy. Maybe I'm not going to do things with Fred anymore.
Well,
but at the
here's
same
another
point,
thing
that's
also.
well. Sorry, go on. I'll talk after.
I'm just going to throw this in real quick. Here's another thing that I don't think we're not necessarily thinking about, but
Mhm.
if you had the reputation system, it's not going to, the reputation system should not be all encompassing, in the sense that, like, if you do, let's, how do I put this? You conduct criminal business with a known criminal. It affects your reputation with that criminal, and it should affect your reputation with whatever the opposing faction is of that criminal, i.e. your local law enforcement, but it shouldn't affect every reputation that you have, in the sense that if you do one thing, it shouldn't suddenly go up to UEE Navy level. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there should never be an instance where you do something and it just instantly you're flagged by the advocacy as, this one individual off in the system, 3 systems over did something. That I don't
And now
think
we got a
that's a good.
bolo
That's
out on 'em.
that's what we have right now.
I was just
I-
using the UEE as an example because we know that they are
I
the
wasn't.
law.
I'm not. I wasn't actually even referencing anything you said. I'm just pointing out that whatever reputation system we have shouldn't be that all-encompassing. It
It
reports
shouldn't be
to everyone.
omnipresent.
It
so to
should
speak.
be selective to the system, and like places like Pyro, maybe it's not even the system. Maybe it's down to the city or the neighborhood that you're in, and
Yeah.
how that reputation interacts with your local environment. Now, if you've raised up levels or you've done things at to high enough levels that the UEE Navy is looking
Ooh.
at you, then yes, maybe what you do trickles out further up the chain, because you already have been flagged. But in general, your day-to-day interactions should be at a local level, if I'm making sense with that.
I actually just
No,
had
I
an
agree,
interesting
and
thought.
that's how I
Like,
thought the reputation system worked already. Like if you do good work for a security, say Crusader security, then you get a little bit of extra reputation to all the other things in Crusader, like box running missions. If you're like below 0, so you have slightly negative. I've had that happen because like box missions fail for whatever reason. You can do some other missions for things in Crusader, and that'll get you back up to neutral, so you can start doing missions with them again. So
well, and
it
on
already
that note,
functions that way to a degree.
I would
um,
say extremely limited degree.
I mean,
on
it
that
is,
note,
but
though,
anyway, go ahead.
on that note, it would be interesting to see again with the idea that, hey, I'm Bob, and my buddy Fred here, I'm doing stuff with him, and Fred's the nicest guy ever when he's with me, and everywhere else he's a total fucking asshole and slaughtering people, etc. Potentially with things like general reputation gain and loss and such, maybe have it to where at if I'm a goody two shoes and I get implicated with Fred because, yeah, I sent him some money because, he helped me out or he gave me something and I'm giving him something back, whatever. If there is, so again, we're talking with this system that because of association, there is some reputation hit, maybe having that hit based on your current reputation. So if I'm a goody two shoes, that hit is very, very minor because I'm goody two shoes. Whereas if I am a real big bad pirate, like Fred, and I've already got a really bad rep, being implicated in one of Fred's crimes as well, oh shit, what do I care if I have a little bit more bad rep? But that reputation hit is going to be much larger because you're already a known bad actor because of that reputation difference. So
Yeah,
kind of what
to me,
level you're
that's
at
part of
as
that.
a multiplier.
That's to me, that's part of that cumulative effect that I was talking about earlier, which is
Yeah.
It's not so much that you had that one interaction; it's that you've had repeated interactions with Fred over and over again, to the point where now each one was 1%, but now you're at 10% because you've had 10 interactions. Like that's how reputations should never be a black
A
and white,
one-off
a
thing.
yes or no. Yeah, it should always be a cumulative process to allow the player that ability to either lean in or back out of gameplay styles depending on how they want to play that game.
Yeah.
But I think we lost Mando.
Yes.
No,
I
I'm
think
still
he
here.
died. Sometimes I can
Sorry?
still hear his voice.
Help me. No, it's been multitasking. Sorry about that.
So what's your
It let
take
you
on
guys
what
speak
we
for a while,
said,
so
Mando?
all that.
So what's your take? You've been
Oh,
silent.
boy. I know, I was enjoying it. No, I think that a lot of these systems are. It's really difficult to say. Oh, it's too early or too late to implement. Like some things, you can easily say it's too early to implement them. But it's not like it's too early because this system is too early to implement. It's because this system relies on other systems to make it work. Like what we talked about last week, or not last week, last time, with the medical gameplay, where it needs to be implemented because we need to have the death of a spaceman, all the mechanics, and they need the data so that they can refine and better improve it. But the game itself is not in a stable enough state for it to be really usable in the state that they want it to be. That's a little different than for the law system. Like, yeah, the law system is so much more complex because you have other gameplay elements that aren't in yet that are needed for it to work the way that they plan it, and for us to want it to be the way that it is, that the way that they want it to have it, where it's working. You don't go to prison because you stepped on a stair the wrong way or something like that. I mean, I saw something that I think a morphologist posted earlier last week, something late last
His
week.
rant about the A2.
I rant about the A2, and like it's a understandable rant, but at the same time, it boils down to the A2 itself isn't what's overpowered. It's the lack of countermeasures, the lack of contingencies against it. I remember, Cam, when we did the review of Jumptown 2.0, and you were saying how we should have hackable AA guns that we can, like, that wouldn't shoot down the ships, but just shoot down any projectiles, essentially, missiles or torpedoes or what's-your-face, bombs, and that'd be great. But at the end of the day,
because that makes a multi-layered gameplay experience as opposed to just you either have fighters in the air to stop something coming in or you don't. Oops, sorry, you're dead. Pretty one-dimensional there.
Yeah. And the thing is, with the A2, it's okay. Systems that would help balance that, so it's not overpowered. Well, the aerodynamic flight system, so that you can't just hover around and fly around endlessly. Systems like AI security, AI aerial units, non-patrol, AA turrets. You have so many systems that just don't exist yet in the game, or are being worked on, or are in place but at their tier 0 stage, so they're not really useful. That would serve as deterrents for an A2 in this instance, and that's what. Yeah, it's not. Is it overpowered? Currently, yes, but not because the ship itself is overpowered. It's just because you have no way to fight it right now. We need more ways to fight it.
Like rebalancing
the ballista to be more. Last time I used
functional?
Functional, let alone effective. Yeah, that would be a great way, right? This way, you just bring a ballista.
Potential for
only. Go on.
The reason that the ballista is kind of just a joke right now is because the decoys are so powerful. If you think about flying a plane over, say, the United States, and you're a bad guy, and everybody knows you're a bad guy. Yeah, you've got all these, you've got fighters coming at you, and you've got ground-based SAMs or whatever, or just flying over a battlefield. You don't go in contested airspace. Look at the current battle that's going on right now. There's literally no air power because man pads and anti-air batteries are so effective. The ballista is very ineffective at doing the one thing that it's supposed to do, which is area of denial of airspace. If the ballista could do its job, then you would have to think twice before flying anything in its AO, because the chance of you dying is probably 70 or 80% versus I don't even think it's like a 5% chance right now.
It's not.
Also,
good,
it's got extremely limited ammo, and there's no way to reload unless you actually, cargo lift it up to a station and go essentially do a rearm. They take it off the battlefield just to rearm it.
Right, but if it was lethal, if it had lethal potential every time it fired a missile, then it wouldn't need like a rack of 40 missiles. The ones that it have are just fine because it's the deterrent value. You're gonna take a risk flying in the area. Yeah,
I think it's both, but you're both right.
Add missiles to it. I'm just saying have a way that you can at least, because essentially you fire it 4 times and it's done.
Yeah. But if you had like an 85% chance of getting a kill every time you fired a missile, then those missiles would count a whole lot more than they do now, because you're basically firing like paper planes at people. Because the chances of them hitting are extremely low, and the chance of that hit doing enough damage to take that vehicle out of the fight, they have to fly away, is also very low. So
and you'd be turning
basically ineffective.
Yeah, you'd be turning a ship combat where it's like, the Star Citizen, the ship's hovering over them, whatever, to that ship, if it wants to do anything ground related, it would have to do strafing runs, old school. Just to avoid getting locked on, just to avoid being within their line of sight long enough to be locked on and fired upon.
So your point is 100% true. It's not that the A2 is extremely overpowered, just that the tools that are in the game right now and that we need to counter it just don't work or aren't in.
Yeah, like for instance, environmental elements, ground-based deterrence, AI, as I said, all these things that would play a factor. Because for instance, an A2 could be more effective in a ground-based combat scenario on one location, on one moon, versus another, where the atmosphere is different. And that's it's more factors that just aren't really at play yet. That would definitely change the balance of.
One issue too, I think, is that, and part of it is we're still in alpha. We're still in early days for a lot of this stuff. A lot of planned ideas, mechanics, vehicles, such aren't in yet or fleshed out. But for example, the ballista, right now, the only vehicle that can really go and transport that is the Hercules class.
The C2.
Any other vehicle,
irony, right?
it's too big that any other vehicle right now cannot transport it. And it's like that.
The Hercules and the
alone-
890 are the only two.
Yes, and the 890. And it's same,
Yep.
same with like the Nova tank. It's just, it is prohibitive to use simply because you have to have this one specific ship. Otherwise, you ain't doing it. And I think we need to have some additional measures. What they are, I don't know at this point. You know, I could throw ideas out there, but we need to have other effective measures for how do you bridge the gap, at least to some degree, of being on foot and utterly vulnerable versus being on a ship and being able to just mop up anything that's on the ground here. There has to be some amount of bridging here. Otherwise, your balanced gameplay goes out the window. You want to have theaters of war, and that's part of really that would help to go into that. But like whenever we get theaters of war someday, but things like, you know, rocket launcher, cool. How effective is the rocket launcher or the railgun? Does it need to have more damage, less damage? Does there need to be a way, for example, let's say the rocket launcher right now, it's pretty much just a dumbfire. I launch it and that's it. Can it even lock on to vehicles?
It can lock
Think it
on,
can?
but it does not do very much damage.
Yeah, maybe, for example, maybe one aspect of it, like the railgun, you know, again, looking just at the railgun and rocket launcher, because those are the only real options we've got right now. Maybe the railgun, you know, kind of you're manually aiming this thing. Maybe you have some kind of scope or something that can point out weak spots, but you're still manually adjusting your aim. Maybe that has a higher damage versus the rocket launcher, but the rocket launcher itself, maybe you can actually say, hey, I want to send this rocket over to the engines or send it over to the maneuvering thrusters, that you can actually pick a sub target on there, the power plant shield emitter, and target just that, because that, hey, if I can hit enough, you know, if I can be popping shots off every now and again and I keep hitting maneuvering thrusters or even the main thrusters, maybe eventually I'll do enough damage that, hey, he's got to pick if he wants to stay in the air or if he wants to leave, because pretty soon he's going to be on the ground. Maybe. Something like that, again, might help to just kind of bridge that gap of going, hey, if you're staying around here long enough, you will have some amount of threat at you from the ground if you're on a ship. Does depend on what ship, but still.
So basically, what we need is a Drake-style vehicle transport that's basically just an area for vehicles
Liberator?
to sit on with some thrusters and a cockpit slapped on it, just to get vehicles around in a battlefield environment.
So the Liberator.
The Liberator, but cut down. I think the Liberator it's too big.
So like half the size or a quarter of the size?
Yeah, think like a Cutlass Black, just instead of having an enclosed interior, you widen out the engines a little bit and just have a flat bed on the back. Maybe a little bigger so you can carry multiple vehicles, but it's basically a transportation sled that's nothing but engines and a cockpit and room for like 3 vehicles on it.
Yeah,
The Nomad with an extended pickup bed.
Like the
Yeah.
the Nomad, but times it by 3 and cut out most of the interior of it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
think
doesn't
like
need
a
living quarters.
military
Well, I mean-
transportation truck. It's got one job.
Well, I would say the Liberator is definitely more because it's Anvil, right? Liberator?
Yeah,
Well,
and
the
it's
Liberator
meant
was
to
meant,
carry ships as well as vehicles.
and it's meant for super long distance. In other words, like transiting
so it's
across
got-
systems.
Yeah,
You need
it's
something
got all
that's
the internal like beds and the
Mm.
living quarters and stuff like that.
you need something that's what you're looking for is your LCAC, your modern day real life LCAC, which is, you got your giant LPH helicopter assault ship that pulls up off the shore, and then you got these big flatbed air cushion vehicles that you roll your tank onto.
Yeah.
Depending on the weight of the vehicle, one tank or like 5 armored personnel carriers, and then all its job is to go from the ship to the shore, drop off, come back, do it again. That's it.
Yeah,
That would be a
they're
very
not meant to live
niche
in. They're
vehicle, though.
transportation vehicles.
Like I would want to see something that would be more of so like what we were talking about before, the Nomad, something that's like, here's just a flat bed you can roll vehicles onto when it locks them down magnetically or whatever, or cargo, maybe use it as your ultra cheap cargo ship for however much cargo it can hold, and it's just got like a tiny little like literally the current size of the Nomad living quarters, like just that stapled on one end of it. So one guy, maybe you've got like a turret on there, like one little turret. That's it. That's all you got, and it's just meant to transport these things. But if like what you guys were talking about, that seemed more like something that would come with like the Kraken, for example. That would be just to deliver vehicles to and from the Kraken. That's it. Or like
It's funny you that you
what I'm
it's
what I'm picturing is I think what's happening right now is we're kind of blending two different categories. I think we initially started out, we're talking about like assault combat scenarios in general. And to me, that's where you need that LCAC. And it is a very niche vehicle because it's all about, large orgs conducting, combat scenarios. But at the same time, I also hear what Cam's saying. And yes, you should have those vehicles that are dedicated that you can live in. But to me, they would not be so combat oriented. In other words, they might not carry 3 vehicles, they might only carry 1, but it's more like your private U-Haul vehicle. And it's maybe not designed for those combat scenarios. So maybe it's not full up armored or something. But if you have that
like
niche one, it is armored and it can carry, say, 6 drivers or the crews for up to however many vehicles it can store. But it's designed specifically for those combat roles. So it is that niche vehicle.
the ballista already is going to fill that role I think Cam is talking about. Maybe a little bit larger, but there's room to do the same thing on a smaller
I'm thinking
scale.
something that could fit like one Nova kind of thing.
Yeah. So I'm thinking exactly what Callsign was talking about, which is why I said a Drake-esque, because it's very stripped down, it's very single purpose.
Industrial.
Yeah, it's to get these military vehicles onto the combat scene and then get out. You're not going to live in it. It's only a transport vehicle to ferry things from space to the ground. So, you don't need any of the living quarters. All you need is a cockpit for the guy flying the place, some seats for the crew to sit in, and a big ass bed for your vehicles to sit on with engines to get it from point A to point B.
Yeah, I could totally
Yeah.
see that. And that brings in logistics too, because not only can that platform bring those vehicles in, but after it's delivered, you can now start loading your ammunition to keep those vehicles that you just dropped off supplied
Yeah.
with what they need.
Yeah, in some ways, I think all the ships that CIG are designing are a little bit too broad, and they want them all to be their very, very own. You get this ship, and you can live in it. You can have this adventure. But in some ways, I would like to see something that's very, like, more
Yeah,
military focused. It has a very specific role. You're not going to be living your life in it. It's to get this particular job done. And
the
right now,
Argo cargoes.
besides the C2, we don't have a vehicle to get or to get ground stuff transported from point A to point B. And the C2 is a very big ship. I would like to see something that's way cut down, much smaller, but still does the same job.
Great. I actually really agree with the initial statement that CIG is really kind of creating jack of all trades ships in the sense of, they got to have living quarters, they got to have a certain amount of cargo availability for your gear and equipment. I'd like to see some of those more utilitarian where it's, you're not going to live in it. It's going to be it's the flatbed pickup truck that you keep out back on your farm, and
Yeah.
you only use it for those specific tasks of hauling your cargo supply from your farm to the town, and that's it. Or variations of that, to local atmosphere, or maybe it's just it's your daily runner up to the space station and back, and that's it.
Right, because I mean, in a universe like Star Citizen, you would have all sorts of kind of vehicles that do very specific things, because you don't need a C2 to haul cargo from a space station down to the surface, that's like overkill. You'd have
Yeah.
some small trolley or like medium-sized hauler to do that job because it'd be much more efficient and cheaper to run.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I know Data Machine is familiar with it. Just from the region that you live in. Once you get outside of a town, pickup trucks are normal, and most of them have that. A lot of them will have that 55-gallon barrel drum with a a refueling hose hooked into it, so that you can
Yeah.
immediately fuel up your farm tractor. They're jack of all
Yeah.
trades trucks.
There was another point I was going to make, but I don't remember what it was.
Bigger than a bread box?
It had something to do
purple.
with maybe it was some of the weapon balancing. I don't remember. We'll just go on.
All right. Well,
What was the too long don't read that Cam needs a bigger gun? Because that's what I'm getting out of this.
Alpha 318 is also, by the way, still. There were some updates this week or over the last 2 weeks about Alpha 318. It's still planned for Q3, but something got delayed. If I heard correctly.
Well, it's not surprising, especially
No,
given how
but,
fast it's gone.
I will say that they did update the roadmap to include the PTV track.
Well, 318 hasn't even gotten to the Evocati yet, correct?
No, I think that's what it was. Yeah, it was going to, but it didn't.
Yeah, I've been hearing some speculations on that we may not. This might be the drought, and we may not be seeing 318 till end of first quarter, beginning of second quarter next year.
It's September. There's always
Well,
a drought then.
They were very open about the fact that they expected to take a much longer time.
Yep.
So
Yeah,
I
so this
agree.
is not surprising, I think, but it is worth mentioning that it's still planned for Q3 of this year, but it's gonna start a little later because we're kind of in Q3 right now. So
Now, one other thing too. Apparently Thursday we're getting a free fly.
oh great.
yay!
Yeah. So server performance is going to tank. Also too, this month's subscriber flare is the Zeus spacesuit, if I remember right. So that was the kind of retro-ish, large, bulky spacesuit we saw them pull out like a couple of months ago. Here.
Yeah, the one we used for the thumbnail of our Siege of Orson playthrough.
Yes. So if that's appealing to anyone, now's the time to subscribe to grab it if you don't want to wait for it to be in game and buy it at whatever stores or wherever it goes in.
Subscriber store, yeah. Only $10 a month too, and you fund all the
Yeah.
Inside Star Citizen stuff. So
When are we gonna get the updated suit maneuvering, space maneuvering?
Gonna be a while.
Gonna be a
Next
while.
year.
It was originally planned for 317 last year, but yeah, everything got pushed back and they're whatever. But
Wait, when were we supposed to get push-pull mechanics again? That was like 2 years ago?
originally 3.8. 3.8. I'm pretty certain. But no,
Yeah.
next patch 318, we're getting the Daymar crash sites with Star Runner and 600i crash sites on Daymar, new rivers across Stanton. The sand caves and the caves are going to be on multiple different moons and locations. The PTV.
You said the Star Runner?
Racetrack, yes.
Oh, okay. I
Yeah.
wasn't aware. That's new.
Yeah, that should be interesting. We got the cargo system refactor, which means they're probably going to do a database wipe for 318. Sandbox prison
And they've already
activities.
said that they're gonna do one.
Yeah. We're getting the security post-Korea reactivation stuff. All that law system gameplay we've gone on for an hour with is going to be in the next patch. New missions around Orison, which are going to be different platforms around Crusader that reuse assets from Siege of Orison, so you can have some FPS gameplay. The way I'm interpreting it, it's pretty much going to be like the bunker missions around, say, Hurston or Microtech, but on Crusader, and instead of bunkers, they're going to be urban combat platforms.
Yeah, that could be interesting.
Yeah, good. Smaller versions of Siege of Orson, that'd be great. And we got the environmental space missions, a bunch of new stuff. Salvage, hopefully, along with the salvage multi-tool and persistent entity streaming, at least first implementation of it in 3.18. 3.18 is a big patch, and then 3.19 was announced later this year, which it's probably going to be like December.
Vulture?
What?
Did they move
yes,
the Vulture?
I blinked on the Vulture. The Vulture's there too.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the Vulture, the multi-tool, salvage multi-tool, and obviously salvage gameplay. They want to get all of those three in one patch. They don't want to like spread it out, which makes sense.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what the repair side of it is going to be as well. I know it's going to be very limited, but that's a curiosity item for me.
No, it would be interesting. I want to see how it works out too. Yeah, so that's just the roadmap updates. We got 2 Inside Star Citizens over the last 2 weeks. The first one was the caves, right, with the cave archetypes. It looked good. They showed off
It looked pretty good, yeah.
More developer. Well, first off, they're talking about the more workflow. The workflow is more developer friendly, allowing designers to work on caves without even needing the dedicated artist. Which, hey, that's great. You can get the caves out faster, and now they know and learned the lessons from the old caves that they can go, oh, okay, this works, this didn't work, and essentially it's like level designing. It's easy to improve. They're adding caves to Daymar, Magda, Ida, Walla, and Hurston. All receive new caves. So Ida and Walla, Magda and Ida are moons of Hurston, which never had caves before, so that's good. Walla also never had caves. That's a moon of ArcCorp. So you have more caves around the game, which is nice. And they're going to be these new type of caves, which is cool. They're going to increase the number of natural light sources in caves so that it's not always the same. Like this way, caves don't all look the same.
Yeah.
Dark and grim. First release.
I'm torn on that one.
I know, right? Because I like that. I don't mind having some caves have it, but I do hope that there are still some caves that just are completely dark, like complete darkness, so you can't see anything unless you have a light source.
Yeah, for anybody who's ever gone spelunking for real, once you get down there in the dark and you shut your lights off, it is absolutely pitch black. There is no light anywhere, and it's amazing and horrifying at the same time, and I love that feel.
I think that what they're talking about, and they just haven't communicated well, is I think you're still going to get that darkness, but I think it's going to be deeper in the caves. I think what they're working on right now is the more like the entrance effects and having it being able, because if you think about like from game design point of view, you have your different environments. You're going to have openings to these caves that reflect those different environments. But once you get deep down, say, you get below a certain depth, your temperature should somewhat self-regulate, and then you can actually change your environment to reflect that. So essentially, a cave that is more than, I'm just picking a random number here, more than 100 meters deep, maybe it transitions, and so anything below 50 meters, all the caves start to look the same because they're all at the same temperatures, and all that changes is maybe the general rock color when you turn
because
on
now
the
you're
light.
just in a cave, like you're just deep underground.
Yeah.
At the end of the day,
Right.
that's going to start to look the same. But the thing is, what I was saying earlier is that how it looks the same everywhere, no matter where you're entering the cave or one location.
This is probably a little bit of a rabbit hole, so we don't have to follow it.
Yeah.
I know part of the reason they want to add lighting in caves is because they want people to be able to see the art and the assets that they're creating.
They
And
literally said it
some of
would
the
be more
games-
cinematic in the Side Star Citizen.
Right. And a lot of the caves that we have, you go down there and they have all these like ambient lights that are giving you kind of the greens and the oranges. And to me, it would be so much more immersive if you could just bring equipment with you, like a special helmet that has an emissive lights around on the top. So
Like a
instead
light
of having
intensifying goggles or something. Yeah.
yeah, instead of having a light shining out of the corner of a cave where there shouldn't be any light, you bring your light sources with you that will illuminate the area around you. I think that would be way more
It would
immersive
also
and
give you a
interesting.
reason to actually use flares.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
I think that's a
I-
flaringly good idea.
And KT's in the chat saying would love to see urban caves as well, tunnels like sewer systems and that sort of stuff on say ArcCorp.
Yeah,
I know I've been
absolutely.
talking to him about that, and I like that idea as well. That'll be cool.
Yeah,
But-
like how alternate ways to get into lockdown areas. Like you're trying to break into Hurston, going through the sewer system.
Yep.
Maybe you choose the wrong one and you come spewing out that pipe. Right
you
right
see a
outside
guy
the
fly
hotel.
out of it.
Oh, that'd
Ah!
be great.
Ah!
Yeah, and they talked about for first release caves will have the new caves will feature no missions and will only be walkable on foot. So just like when caves were first implemented, except when they were first implemented, they did have the rescue mission, but it was just you find a corpse and that's it. So it's gonna be like when caves were first implemented again. You're just gonna go in, probably find some minables, and that's. They also talked about rock, acidic, ice, and overgrown cave archetypes that are also being worked on. Which, hey, that's great. More caves, and hopefully they can add the urban tunnel systems, the septic systems, as well.
They better give us the option to buy cleats before they bring out the ice caves.
When you
and
mentioned
snow
the sewers,
caves with
it
the
made
waffle
me
shoes.
think. There's another reason for having that hand wiping motion on your visor. Got to get this shit
Oh
off.
no.
And that's another thing too, is creatures and whatever may live inside the caves.
Yeah,
They have a lot of.
we know they've
potential
been
with
working
caves.
on those quite a bit too.
Mhm.
In the background, they haven't
Yeah.
been talking about it, but they're working on them.
Yeah, they have said something once or twice over the last year. They also have the new player purveyor. Star Citizen currently has a steep learning curve. No shit. Which is why a new tutorial is being worked on. The tutorials aim to take the player through the game, going from habitation to the store to the ship to a small combat mission, etc. An FPS HUD is being worked on for Squadron 42, featuring contextual hints, which should eventually reach the PU, because everything's being developed for Squadron first, then PU. And all landing zones will have improved signage. Currently working on Area 18 as we speak, or as of the Inside Star Citizen came out. But yeah, they're working on a new tutorial. I mean, the last time they did a tutorial was, I want to say 3.2. Like, it was relatively recently. But
Was
the problem,
it 3.2?
I remember it was
I
post
thought it was
3.0.
like 2.7.
No, that was the most recent one was like 3.0
Okay.
or afterwards. But the most significant one was that old school tutorial with Gilly and everything like that. Where they had that really cool HUD design. I want that to come back. Call. Yeah, I want that HUD design to come back from that old school tutorial. That was cool. Yeah, so they're working on tutorial, got new caves, and obviously last week's Inside Star Citizen, it was all about persistent entity streaming, which essentially, for those who don't know, persistent entity streaming allows the game to persist the entire game world and restore it from disks so it's never lost. So we got, say I placed this gun on the surface of Yella, right, on a moon. And I walk away, come back a week later, assuming no one else came by to pick it up, it should still be there. That's the level of persistence they want in Star Citizen. That's what persistent entity streaming will at least allow them to do, if not pave the way to allow them to do.
As I understood it, also the really big deal with that is not only that item remains there, but they've also figured out how to make it so that if essentially, if you're not there and nobody else is there, that cup is not there to the servers, in the sense that the servers won't spend time trying to generate that cup if nobody else is around. It'll only show up when an entity is in the area, which is that huge deal about cleaning up the clutter and letting the servers actually expend their memory and their effort on their computation on what actually only needs to be shown for each person that's in that
Right.
that shard.
That plays into the whole server meshing and the digital game shards and the tech they showed off in CitizenCon. And that's
So
how the two
it's a big
systems
deal.
play together to create that. Where it's like, yeah, it will be there. But obviously, when you leave and no one else is around, yeah, the cup's going to despawn to preserve performance and get rid of any non-used assets. But once you're back in the area, it's going to spawn back in over there, and it's like it never despawned. It's like you never.
Yeah, big deal.
Yeah. Talked about what will it look like to the player, because obviously this is a big core tech back-end tech system being implemented, but what it will look like, it's just state and entities will persist within the server permanently outside of lifecycle cleaning. If you blow up a door, that door will stay blown up. Like, it's essentially that level of persistence that we just talked about. You're gonna have things remaining the way they were as you left it. It's not going to be, oh, I joined the server now, that door I blew up it's intact again because I didn't blow it up here, or the new server, whatever it is. Apparently in the last 3 months, they moved from a feature branch to the game dev branch, so the tech is stable enough where the whole company, all CIG, can work on it now, on persistent energy streaming. So a lot of things turned on fire. The technology touches every subset in the game, from trains, elevators, inventory transfer, from login, etc. I'll be right back. I Google.
Don't die. Too late.
So since he's gone, I got a question for you guys.
Just one.
Okay.
Just one. What do you guys think that there is a potential for how they've broken out Squadron 42 development away from the PU? Do you think that there's a chance that the game style of Squadron 42, in the fact that it's linear and it's kind of it's sequential, and how they're developing the tools for that, do you think there's a chance that that will have a negative impact on the PU? In what I mean is, the PU is meant to be a sandbox in the general sense of kind of like here's the mechanics, here you are, now go do what you want to do. Whereas Squadron 42 is more about, here's a mission, you need to complete this mission. We're not so much, the mechanics aren't developed for it to be a sandbox. They're developed for a more linear, I'm not saying it's absolutely linear, but a more, air quotes around that, linear style of gameplay. Do you think there's going to be any adverse effects on the PU from that in the development process?
I would argue there already have been. I mean, for how many years have we been seeing stuff like, for example, the Idris? I mean, we've seen the Idris pop up several times, but we have had, to some degree, a, air quotes, working Idris since like 2017. Now, again, whole thing isn't blocked out. Yeah, there's still some stuff they got to go and work out in terms of functionality, stations, piping, that kind of stuff. When they go, oh, we're doing item ports now. Okay, that's all got to be done in there again, just like with all the other ships. But we could have had this ship were it not for the fact that it's in Squadron 42. It's going to be their flagship, literally. So they want to go and not only make it the best they can, but also hold it off for us to fully see the inside of it and use it until we get Squadron, thing could have been in years ago.
It could have been in,
Similarly
but
with
like
several.
part of the
Sorry,
reason
go.
that it isn't in is because just the sheer number of entities on there would break the server basically. That's why they need
Yes.
server streaming and all the stuff that we're getting in 3.18 because
Yep.
otherwise, I mean, performance would just be shit. So we'd have it, but we wouldn't be able to do anything with it.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot of other similar mechanics that are kind of being not necessarily held back but fleshed out more for Squadron versus the PU.
Yeah.
And we've seen it just in terms of what we see on the progress tracker on the roadmap that we had before we got the current one here of, hey, here's all this stuff, and we'll see it Wednesday, I think, in the next roadmaps or monthly reports coming out. We're going to see, hey, here's all of this. We did scene stuff for this. We did AI polished for that. We did some more whatever. And it's like, here's all this stuff for Squadron. And at the same point, though, we still have no idea when Squadron's coming out. End of next year, year after that, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. We still have no idea. And we've been in the same situation for the last 5-6 years with Squadron, really. And so it's just kind of like, I would absolutely say that the PU is absolutely hurting because of this, because they're absolutely split here. I would argue we'd be far more along in terms of content, in terms of vehicles, were it not for, well, we're developing 2 games at once instead of just the PU. Now,
Can
I think
jump in
that,
for a second?
Yeah.
I agree with what you're saying. Absolutely. I think more what I was trying to get at is less about the content, as in like the assets that are being available. What I was talking about is a little more along the lines of this is just an example to better represent what I'm talking about. But like hacking mechanics. What I'm worried about is that they will develop hacking mechanics in Squadron 42, and because it's a very linear mission, they will develop something that is probably really good and interesting gameplay within that Squadron 42 environment. But because they're developing the mechanics for 42 and then bringing it to the PU, when they bring that hacking mechanic that they really like and works for Squadron 42, it gets put into the PU sandbox, and all of a sudden we're like, hey, this thing, yeah, it's interesting, but it only does, I'm just picking a random number here, but it only does 30% of what we as a community base in a multi player environment sandbox want. And they go, well, we've already developed it to this point, and it would take this much more effort to develop that. We don't want to do that. That's my concern. It's kind of like, is the development in PU of the mechanics going to affect, or in Squadron 42, sorry, going to have a negative impact on what we get in the actual PU? Am I making sense there in that question?
No, I get what you're saying there. And in that frame of reference, I would say I am not very worried about that, just because I do think that when they're developing this stuff, they are clearly looking at it from both a perspective of both Squadron 42 and future iterations of the single player side and the PU at the same time. So I'm not too worried about that. I no, that's not to say that they haven't managed to do that, and I very much assume that yes, it's happened, and they go, oh shit, and then they go and they real quick go, okay, patch this, change this around, okay, we're good now, and they real quick did some stuff without us knowing about it,
right,
to fix it.
And I just for clarity, I'm not bringing this up as I think this is what they're doing. I'm literally asking the question, like, do
Spitballing.
you think it could happen? Could it be a problem? I'm not trying to imply it is. So I just want to be on the record for that.
Yeah, I think they've got enough measures in place that except for some things like the med gun thing when that first came out, and they were like, "Wow, we really didn't think players would use it this way in terms of overdosing every other player around as soon as they could." And I was just kind of like, "Really? You guys
Have you played your own
obviously-
game?
Like, you guys obviously don't have enough trolls in the office here."
Yeah.
Like, have you been on the internet lately?
Yeah.
The problem is that lack of player testing, and at least in their case, like because what do players do? Players enjoy breaking the game. So, and
Yeah,
the
you're
lack
not wrong.
the lack of that in testing is evident.
And
Yeah.
once
Yes.
something becomes a meme and is considered funny, then everybody's going to try it.
Yeah.
Yep,
True.
Showdown last year.
I'm bored. What am I going to
Um,
do? Oh, remember that meme I saw last Tuesday? I'm going to try and do that.
I'll answer your question. I'm pretty much on board with everything that Cam said. I think that they've taken a lot of time to consider PU implications, and they've even said with the mission design at Squadron, they don't want it to be very linear. They want you to have options with how you approach
True.
missions and have different attack vectors and ways to complete it. So even in that context, I
say
think
that.
things have to be pretty wide built in such a way that you can use them in multiple different situations instead of just a narrow scope. And I think
Okay.
there's an extra benefit that we're going to get in that the features that come to the PU after they've been developed for Squadron are going to be much more mature and well built and functional than what we're generally used to, because Squadron, it needs to be functional from start to finish before they release it. So we should be getting some pretty close to end functionality with the stuff that we get out of Squadron after it gets released.
Okay. Yeah, I was just curious what your guys' take on that question would be. I'm on the fence.
Originally I thought you were asking about content such as like missions and stuff, and I was going to say that part of the criticism for the PU right now is that there's not enough missions and linear objectives for you to follow. It's way too much open-ended, make your own gameplay. That's where I thought you were going with that question initially.
That is actually another question that I do have, but to me, it's more that I think right now that the PU needs missions. I think right now what we are seeing is the development of those missions, and that's why it seems like the PU has become so mission centric. And my only concern is that that doesn't become the desired gameplay of CIG, if I'm making sense there. Like, I understand they need to build
take
missions.
over to the point where they no longer consider the PU when they're making these choices, and they just go, "What's best for Squadron? Cool, we're doing that."
Well, not only that, but like they lose track of being an open sandbox and they become more mission oriented. That's the only thing I don't want to have happen, if that makes sense. In other words, we need to keep building more missions. Like, that becomes their driving goal. I think that would be bad. I'm not saying that the PU shouldn't have missions. It absolutely should. I just don't want it to be the primary focus of the development of the PU. I don't think I'm making sense there.
I know. I know where you're getting at.
I get what you're saying.
Because
Okay.
you go. Sorry, you go.
We want the. Sorry, we keep talking over each other. Go ahead, Mando.
I was gonna say, like, they want to do. You're worried that, and rightfully so, that it's all going to be about missions, where that takes priority over other things, and it's essentially just when's the next drip feed of a mission content versus when's the next actual gameplay loop and mechanics that we've been waiting for, like salvage or smuggling or all these other gameplay loops that were listed years ago.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. So, correct.
So in
And I
terms of
agree.
missions, what I would like to see is, here is the objective. Now, here are all these tools and ships and functionality that we built as an underlying bedrock of this game that you can now utilize to achieve that mission in whatever way you decide.
Yep,
What they need to do
absolutely
is
agree.
they need to treat missions, and I could be wrong for saying this, but they need to treat missions like this is an RPG quest.
Okay, but I just want to make sure that the Vandal dating sim in Squadron is top tier quality.
Oh,
What do you mean? Oh no, you're the one that
Oh,
constantly
God.
wears the Van Duel mask data. You're already a
Where's my
hybrid.
Where's my Vandal Sim Life server?
Okay, but my point being is like where you have something like a side quest in New Vegas where your goal is to find this person, right? But you can go about finding that person any way you like. You can go in blasting, go in stealth. You can meet with other people to get clues to where they are.
Yeah, I absolutely agree, and I think they've shown that desire in the past, and that's why it's not. I'm more asking the question. I think they've had that mindset in the past, but in the last, I'd say like year and a half, we've just seen a lot of very specific mission. Like we're kind of like KSP, like we're implementing this, and we've added missions to Klesher, and I just don't want to see that become the modus operandi, from here on out. Is we've got teams dedicated to building missions, like you said, instead of putting time into kind of like, well, what you said and what Data Machine said, which is the underlying mechanics that will allow multiple mission styles. That's my main concern.
I think that's a lot of because of the criticism they've been getting. Like, there's nothing to do. Well,
Yeah,
the things that
I
they're
agree.
adding for you to do, I mean, it's stuff that you can go do, right? But it's very linear. It's very single objective oriented. There's only one way you can finish it. What
Pick
we
up
want
box,
is
deliver box.
what we want is there's an objective. Now, we built and we want all the underlying tech in the game that will allow us to achieve that objective through whatever avenue we choose instead of, well, there's a ship, we got to go kill this guy, go to ship, blow ship up, mission done.
Now I'm not.
Yeah.
I have no problem with, for instance, the bounty hunting missions as they are right now. They're just glorified assassination contracts where you dogfight with another ship and kill them, and that's fine. I do want there to be simple missions like that, but those types of missions would, if we were to translate into an RPG context, that would be a Radiant quest. That wouldn't be a main or side quest. That would be like your procedurally generated objective to do to earn some XP and get some gear out of it.
Yeah,
Like
I
some
think
loot.
you nailed it there. It's a side quest. It's not the main.
It's not even.
main
That's my
line.
point.
Yeah,
Yeah,
And
it
we
feels
need
like most
stuff
of the
that
missions that we're getting
has
right
more meat
now
to it.
are it's just filler content as why we wait for the other stuff to get
Yeah.
finished.
No, I think it's stuff to keep us busy and testing, because at the end of the day, all these different missions do test a specific different thing from one another, and they need us to play these missions so that they can get the data and all the test results for these missions, so that they know how to go about future missions and future gameplay loops and what needs balancing and what doesn't in the future. And that's why I think they've been very mission centric of late. But my concern is currently it does feel, Carlton, as you said, it does feel very exclusive to missions at the moment, and it's not, but it does feel that way, and it's coming off as okay, this isn't a live service game or a finished game where you can the game's done, you can just add in new missions here and there to keep people busy. This is still a game in development. We need those other gameplay loops and stuff to test, and I think again boils down to the lack of communication in that regard.
agreed. And like I said at the beginning, I think it is also that that they may just be in that phase. They're in that phase of the cycle of they got to the point where they said, okay, we got certain mechanics in, we need to create these missions. It's just like you said, they're not communicating that, hey, we're just doing this for right now so that we can move on to the next thing. So it seems like they're focusing only on that, and that's all that we're seeing because of that communication gap.
We also do have to take into account that, and they have said this in some way in the past, that they really, granted, until server meshing, whether it be static server meshing, then eventually dynamic server meshing, along with persistent entity streaming, a lot of back-end systems not being in place at the moment does prevent them from adding new stuff and further developing the game. So they are kind of at they're at a roadblock until they can get past it with the back-end systems. So in the meantime, they're like, okay, well, we can focus on these missions until the persistent entity team and the game dev team all get those back-end systems in place and working to a point where we can implement them and then further progress the game. But until then, they are kind of left with just doing missions for now. So.
Yeah, good point. I agree.
The irony is that I think we're always going to be in some form of hurry up and wait. It's never going to change. It's just going to.
You're trying to say we've all joined the military?
We're never going to reach the point where we feel like, oh yeah, now we finally made it. It's always going to be something else that we're looking at. It's like, yeah, we're just waiting on this to get done, and that's going to get done, and this, yeah, we're just waiting on this next thing to get done.
I don't know. I'm pretty sure if we get repelling, Cam's going to say we're done.
I can confirm.
Did someone say repelling?
No. You have to rappel down as you say that.
Yeah.
But
reach into a skylight.
Exactly. Hut. No, but the whole thing with it's kind of like a Stephen Wright joke right now, where it's I named my dog Stay. Here Stay. Like that's kind of where we're at right now, where we're always there's something. Yeah, we got X done, but now there's Y and Z, and then there's a bunch of other things after that for some reason. Like.
Yeah. Well, like you said before, we're gamers. Rule number 1, we're going to break shit. Rule number 2, whatever you give us, wow, that's great. 2 days later, we're going to go, what's next?
Yeah. Are we there yet?
Thank you for phrasing it that way, because it does make it sound much better than how others would probably have phrased it, which is a lot less polite. Yeah, no, absolutely.
If you look back at development, you can even see it happening. Every time CIG hits a wall and realizes that the tech that they have is not sufficient for what they're trying to do, then everybody's just sitting around like, well, we're just stuck here waiting until that tech gets done. And it gets done, it's like, yay, it's done.
It was originally object container
other
streaming
tech that needs to get done, and then yay, it's done. Now we're waiting on this other tech. Yeah.
It was object container streaming, then iCache, now server meshing and persistent entity streaming, and
I would offer that it's Quasar. Not even that. It's look at our patch cycles. A new patch comes out, everyone goes crazy nuts and plays the game, and the servers are full. And 2 weeks later, it starts to kind of drop off, but people are still talking about the game. A month later, people are kind of like, 2 months later, people start complaining, and then the next patch comes out, and it's all over again.
Lather, rinse, repeat.
Hey, I will say this. One bonus, at least we're consistent.
And straight. Wait, is that a good thing? But
yeah, I just wanted to bring that question up while Mando was away. We had that downtime.
It's a good question.
I'll say right now, big props to the community managers of CIG for dealing with and managing the deluge of constant ups and downs from community. Because good lord, I bet that's a rough ride.
Yeah, I've seen Xylo's been busy.
Yeah, I think Xylo is a really good community manager, and since we're on the topic of community management, number 1, I'm hearing rumors that we may not see Star Citizen live again. It may be going away.
Well, hold on there, because we haven't done this week in Star Citizen yet, and this week in Star Citizen there is a Star Citizen Live Friday.
Right. What I'm saying is they're saying that there's a potential that there's only going to be.
Oh, you mean they're
going
to cancel? Okay, they're going to stop it.
Yeah, they're like what they've got is backlog that they've already created, but the rumor is going around that we may only be inside in the future. We may only be looking at inside Star Citizen.
I really hope it, just because we've been seeing over the past several years. I mean, we had 4 or 5 different videos we'd get every week, down to 2 kind of sorta, and even still like half of those
Yeah.
or all of those are sometimes, hey, let's do a review. Hey, let's have our devs talk about themselves as opposed to the game. And it's like, it's fine if you want to do that, but let's not take the place of other content that we should be getting in the idea of open communication here. And we've just been
Yeah.
kind of seeing that getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and that is potentially worrisome.
Yeah, but we know why. We know why we're getting less information. That's because people don't know how to take that information
Yeah,
with the understanding that this is what we're going to try to do, not a promise that this
I
is
don't
what we're
care
going
that
to do.
some people can't
But-
handle it. I still like
But-
when this project was started, it was said we're having open communication. And I understand them being frustrated that some people definitely do go and take things out of context or don't care that we're an alpha and expect a fully played game, but I, as a backer, expect that open communication still. I don't care that some people are bitching. I still want this communication. And if they're, as we've seen, removing more and removing more and removing more to the point where we're barely getting information here, that's bad.
But if the constant
I will-
negative push from the community about that stuff is having an impact on the possible future of being able to finish the game,
I call bullshit
wouldn't
on
it be
that. I
prudent?
remember them saying that. I call
Hold on.
bullshit.
Hold on a sec. Let me interject here.
Mhm.
I agree with both of you guys, but here's my third option. I think that part of the community management team's job is if that negativity is impacting the amount of content that they're willing to give us, they need to find other ways. Like that's part of their job is to
Yes.
find it. Like if this isn't working, then we need to find something else. Not turn it off, but find a different way to communicate. Like that's
Format it different, whatever. Yeah, no, absolutely.
that. So I'm not coming down on either side as pro or con. I'm simply saying if it's not working, let's find other ways. Don't just turn it off.
It's,
I think
you know,
that's a bad way to go about that. That's not doing your job. That's quitting your job. That's going, well, they're the community, the players are frustrating me, so I'm just going to stop communicating. That's not what a community manager's job is. It's going, hey, this isn't working. Let's try something different. And we're not seeing them try something different. I will stand on that hill. That's all
Yeah, no, I
I
totally agree.
wanted to throw it.
I mean, it's community management. I mean, it does what it says on the tin, right? Or it's supposed to.
Yeah, and to be more specific, I'm not. As I just said recently, I think Xylo. Like I think there's different levels of the community management, and what I'm talking about is the Disco Lando side. In other words, the media content side of the community management team. I absolutely agree with what Data Machine said earlier, which is the general like day-to-day interactive group leaders, as in Xylo and I always forget his name, the guy over in Germany. I think they do an amazing job of interacting and asking questions, but it never gets up to the output side of the management team, of the community team, which to me is Disco, and presenting what these guys are the interactions that they're getting back, the feedback that they're getting, and going, hey, we're not communicating right because we're getting all these kinds of questions. And you don't see Disco going, hey, maybe you guys aren't understanding what we're trying to say, so here's it in another way. So my focus isn't on Xylo and those guys who are basically, in the chat rooms. I'm more about the production side is where my focus is.
The stuff like Inside Star Citizen, all the weekly shows and stuff. And
Yes.
I will say in defense of Jared, like I have seen in Star Citizen Live, a lot of the time he does spend a lot of time saying having to explain Star Citizen is an alpha, it is currently in development, all that, the whole song and dance, and for good reason, like it is. But
Yeah.
the problem is that they have to explain it because of how it looks from the the marketing side of things. Every now and then, the new trailer for a new patch, whatever comes out. We talked about this in the past a while ago, but the whole you're making it out to be like it's a finished game or an early access game when this is not even. This is an alpha. This is what it says on the tin, right?
Difference between what we see and what we get. The expectation of what we're going to get versus what we're really going to get.
And that's the thing; it sets false expectations because, like, oh no, this thing looks great. So no, this is definitely still a work in progress, in development, alpha. Things are very glitchy. It is exactly what it says on the tin, alpha. But then you have this really flashy cinematic whatever, mixed messages.
I would pose that maybe Disco has been in his position a little too long. I don't mean that. This sounds negative, but I don't actually mean it. What I'm talking about here is that anyone who's an expert in their field, if you spend too long there, you burn out. Like you no longer become effective because times change and the way you go about doing things, they change. So what you were an expert at before that got you to that position, unless you continue to develop and adapt, you actually become outdated. And Lando has done an amazing job, but at the same time, he's, is he burned out? Is he the only person that can communicate with us? Like maybe it's maybe part of that community management figuring out other ways of communicating is maybe you get a different person who just sees things a little bit differently. And I'm not saying like, Lando has to go away, but maybe you have another show with a different person. And that's the alternate view, the alternate way of expressing the same idea. It's just done differently. Like that might be an option is what I'm getting at. I'm not saying like Lando should be shit canned. No, he's done amazing work. He does good work, but he's also set in his ways now because he's been doing it for so long that, when he sees something, he automatically interprets it a certain way. So maybe it's time to get a second person in there. I'm spitballing here.
Before we go down the road of attributing reasons why something is or something isn't doing well, where's this rumor coming from? And do we have any confidence in it being true, or is it just a rumor that's floating around?
Which aspect of rumor are you talking about? Are we talking about Lando or are we talking about the SC Live? I heard that. Who was that coming out of? Astropub has said it, and also, God, who was it? The other big one. I always get the two confused over in England.
Board Gamer?
There's Board Gamer, and then there's one other guy.
Super Macro?
Super Macro. Yeah. Hearing it, they haven't put it out as like, this is what's going to happen. It's just, they've put it out as, hey guys, this could be happening. They've put it out as, this is just rumor. There's nothing to go on. But the fact that you're hearing it from several different people who have pretty good ties into the company, I would say that warrants a little more evaluation of it versus just some user just spouting off on his show kind of a thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, my opinion would be that Lando did move to the EU recently, so maybe he's tired of dealing with all the bullshit of having to do that show, and he's like, okay, I'm ready for something else. Someone else can take these reins, and I'm ready. I want to try something different.
Yeah, it could be.
If they do get rid of SCL, I'd be interested in knowing if they've got any plans for something else to replace it.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything, but the fact that you haven't heard anything, that's kind of like basic community 101 or not community, but like show business is
right. Yeah,
usually
you would never want to let people know that you're planning to replace something up until the point that you're ready to replace it because
exactly.
Yeah.
Like you don't say, hey, we're canceling the show and not say, but we've got something else for you to watch,
Yeah.
So, and like I said, this is just at rumor level right now. granted, to me, it's it's one slight tick up above just because of the people that it's coming from. But again, it could all fall apart and be a house of cards. I don't know.
Yeah.
But anywho,
Yeah, no, that's pretty much regarding the SDL. It's still going to be, as far as this week is concerned, there's still a Star Citizen Live this week. There hasn't been one in weeks.
No, there was one last
yeah,
week.
because they canceled
there?
last week's.
Oh, okay.
So odds are last week's is this.
Yeah.
This week's,
It's been off air for at least 2 weeks because
yeah.
the
last one was the Q&A.
2 weeks
the
ago.
vehicle.
It was it wasn't supposed to play. It was supposed to play last week, but they canceled it, and now we're getting one. So
The last time they did a Star Citizen Live was the last time we were live. So
that's
they did
not
the
good.
vehicle Q&A. But yeah, this week we got obviously Monday. It's Labor Day. They got this week Star Citizen and Ship Showdown stuff going on. Tuesday is always a lore post. We're also getting the September 2022 subscriber comlink. Get all the details regarding subscriber gear. Wednesday is going to be the August 2022 PU and Squadron 42 monthly reports. And then Inside Star Citizen Thursday, as well as the Elite 8 Free Fly starting Thursday. And then Star Citizen Live and Free Fly is going to continue on for the rest of the weekend.
Just curious,
You
is
know,
anyone actually involved in the Ship Showdown or care about it?
I mean,
Negative.
Ham and I made little posts of a Carrick and Pisces shots, but that's really.
I just looked at it for the first time about 5 minutes ago, and I'm like, whatever.
Yeah, no, it's. I don't even know what's going on. The only thing I know is what ships are in it. I don't know what ships are winning or whatever. I have no idea.
I just clicked off it, and now when I click back on it, for some reason it doesn't want to show me the update version. But I think it was the what is it? This is an old one, I think. Let me try and find a new one. Go on about your business until I figure out what's going on here.
I would just want to point out one other thing when we're talking about Star Citizen videos, and that the inside Star Citizen videos are contingent on the developers being willing to go on camera and talk about things. And don't think it's a realistic expectation to just tell every developer in Star Citizen that, hey, to work here, you have to agree to come on a show in front of thousands, maybe tens of thousands of people who then might be inclined to flood your social media with messages and questions and possibly criticism. So that's one other aspect I think it's important
I
to take into
totally agree with what you're
consideration.
saying.
Yeah.
But to me, that's where that's where you try different things in the sense of maybe you don't need them. Maybe you just have, you have a representative sitting behind a desk holding up a piece of paper and reading off of hey, I had a private conversation, or I had a conversation with the dev team. You don't even need to, say who specifically it was, but this is what we talked about, and just alternate formats of that. If
Yeah.
that dev is so inclined as you described, because you're absolutely right. A dev should not be forced to come on TV. You're
True.
absolutely right about that. But there's alternate ways to still get that information across.
Yeah, they can do a voice thing like what we're doing right now. They can do it boils back to what you're talking about, where they should be experimenting with. Well, if this doesn't work, what does?
Yeah. Okay, I got the updated one. So right now, this is the Ship Showdown. The next bracket system, I guess, is the Redeemer and the Scorpius are going off against each other. The 600i Explorer is going up against the Carrick. The Star Runner is waiting for either the Raft or the Freelancer Max to be decided.
That's
And
not right. You said the 600 eyes going up against the Carrick. I have 400 eyes going up against the Carrick here.
okay, the bracket I have was the 600 eye went up against the Terrapin and it won.
Oh,
And then
okay. You have the updated model. My mistake.
The Carrick went up against the 400 eye and the Carrick won, so it'll be 600 eye versus Carrick. And then the current pending one that they're waiting on is Freelancer Max versus the Raft, and that'll go up against the Star Runner. And then the next brackets that are actually waiting is Avenger Titan versus the Eclipse, and the Pisces versus the Mule, which I find kind of weird because why are you putting a land vehicle up against a flying
ship,
vehicle?
yeah.
Oh, it's the mule, man. Come on.
I know.
Everybody loves the mule. It's so cute.
Gag me with a chainsaw.
You will.
Sorry to date myself.
No, it's okay. Data did a creepy voice. It was warranted.
But yeah.
So Pisces
Yeah,
gonna win? No, I'm kidding.
I wouldn't be surprised.
No, I wouldn't.
I think it'll probably just glancing at this and not really knowing what's going on. I wouldn't be surprised to see the Pisces or the Mule in a final showdown with something. Of course,
I mean,
I'm already
whoever wins
disappointed 'cause
ends
the
up having to go up
Terrapin's
against. Given just based on popularity, from what I can understand, I can see the Pisces or the Mule beating Eclipse or Avenger Titan.
Yeah, I could. I would not be surprised just because it's the latest, or current, relatively current ship. I could see the Scorpius probably being somewhat popular.
Yeah.
And like maybe the Pisces versus the Scorpius. I don't know.
Well, the Pisces
As a
has been
final
getting a
bracket.
lot of love in regards to player use lately because of how easy it is to move around and do all the bunker missions with.
Oh well. To be honest, I'd just like to see whatever the top 4 are. I just want them to be ships that don't have like a lot of skins, just so that we can get some more variety.
Agreed. Because at the end of the day, that's really what matters. It's not who wins; it's the top 4 that win. Because those are the 4 that are going to get unique Intergalactic Aerospace Expo skins at the later this. Oh, that reminds me, we're getting updates on CitizenCon, I think, in the coming months, given how it's supposed to be, it's usually around October? I mean, the anniversary is October 10th, so...
That's true. I completely forgot about CitizenCon.
We'll be getting updates
They said
soon.
there's not going to be a keynote, is that correct?
I believe we're hearing something about that. So
that makes me wonder what will actually, what it will consist of then.
Who knows, but it should be interesting given the state of the game right now. And also, what's more important in regards to CitizenCon this year is this is the 10th anniversary. It'll be 10 years, the CitizenCon. So, in regards to at least Squadron,
hope they don't theme it.
In regards to at least Squadron 42, they better have something, because it's going to be a PR nightmare for them.
Yeah, I just really hope they don't theme, they don't do that as a theme. We're gonna make everything retro looking, and we're gonna have a hour-long show on where we've been and how we got here. To me, that would be
like
almost
a history recap,
an ISC live, where it's no, this is CitizenCon shouldn't be where you do a retrospective review. That's wasting an opportunity to educate us on what the state of the game is.
Yeah, no, CitizenCon is essentially what new tech are you developing for the future of this game? Not if you want to do a year-in review type thing or anniversary review, you can do that in Inside Star Citizen. They've done that in the past, so I'm not too concerned that that's going to be the case. But now that you mention it, it's possible, but I hope not.
Yeah, The only reason I think they would do it is just because of what you said. The 10-year anniversary might nudge them over into thinking it's a good idea. I hope not.
Yeah, I mean, I just thought it was worth mentioning because I wanted to show this is significant. This is a significant year in both. Star Citizen's been going this long, but also it's been going this long. That's kind of why I mentioned it. So if they don't really have anything, good or substantial to show at CitizenCon, personally, I don't care, but others will, and it will
would
look bad.
good for the public image. Yeah.
I mean, Star Citizen isn't exactly in positive limelight right now. Just on a normal basis in regards to people outside of the community. Star Citizen, it's looked down upon in a very bad light due to, it's in development forever, it's never going to be complete, blah 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 blah. They're selling you spaceships. Though. It's a scam. Whatever.
I disagree. I think it's in better light than it has been in the past.
That's not saying much.
Well, I mean, before it had absolutely nothing to show, and with the I don't know what the proper word would be for it, but with the ED, the Elite Dangerous franchise problem.
Good point.
Getting all those ED players to come over and start playing and actually go, oh wow, hey, there's actually something here. Granted, it's not the full thing, but it changed a lot of minds. And then there's also been quite a few of the larger big game content people coming over and doing more, showing more. So I would agree that they're it's not they don't look the best, but I'd say the Star Citizen community overall looks better than what it did 3 years ago.
Yeah, that's a good point. No, you're right. I completely forgot about the whole Elite Dangerous drama and everything, and why all these Elite Dangerous pilots and commanders came over to Star Citizen last year. Now, but
yeah,
you got.
There was a whole war of them who were just refused to even look at Star Citizen until they didn't have a game to play, essentially.
Yeah,
and then they're like, "Holy crap, this is actually pretty good." Citizen Will and Kate, previously known as Commander Will and Kate of Dangerous, the biggest Star Citizen YouTuber right now. They're one of those people that just came in last year.
Part of the problem too with it is you've had for so long, and I'm very much assuming that it's at least partially funded by some of the large publishers out there. I mean, just the idea that, hey, I'm a person, I have a dream of a game, I'm going out there, I'm making it, and it's getting big. I mean, no one can argue, at least with seeing what the goal is for Star Citizen, that this is not AAA game territory. I mean, really, it's far beyond what junk they go and label as AAA these days. But I'm thinking for at least some of the publishers, they're kind of like, oh shit.
Yeah.
If this succeeds, it's going in and directly showing, hey, you don't need a publisher. Now, Star Citizen has had a lot of luck on its journey so far, and its journey still has a very long way to go before it could be called anywhere near full product. But if it succeeds, it's showing, hey, you don't need a publisher. And I think for the publishers, being that they're sitting there fat, happy, and very much liking the position they're in, where they get to dictate any kind of terms they want, pretty much to the developers, that's scary, because that's saying, hey, we don't need you. And I'm assuming that some of that bad press that Star Citizen gets continually is funded by them going, oh no, you don't need to worry about that game. It's just a scam, it's a hoax, it's vaporware, it's whatever. But then when people, as you go, and people hear that and go, well, I mean, all these different sources are saying this, it's got to, at least have some element of truth to it, and maybe it does. But then when people actually go, hey, let's actually take a look at this thing now that the game I've been playing, because I used to play Elite Dangerous back in 2015 and earlier. And then Horizons came out, and I said, the hell with this junk. And I was like, well, time to check out this Star Citizen thing my buddies keep bugging me about, and I never fucking looked back. And I think a lot of people are in that same kind of boat to where, oh, it's a scam. It's got to be bad. You know, there's no way with this much bad press it could be anything good until, hey, I don't have my main space game anymore. Fine, it's a free weekend for it. I guess I'll fucking try it. You know, what have I got to lose? And then going, hey, this is some decent shit here.
Yeah. No, I'd say that's had a large impact in this last year or so. Absolutely. And
yeah,
having the big content providers come in too, you know, Level Cap Gaming. I'm not a follower of him. I've never, in the past, I never followed him, but I recognize that, you know, for within his own realm, he's a big deal. And to have him coming in and providing content to the point where he's actually telling his community, like, hey guys, this might not be your thing, but I'm enjoying this enough. I'm going to continue to do this content. That's huge. That's a big statement.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've even seen stuff
just,
like
just saying it's worthwhile.
Yeah.
And big. From big names that usually don't do this type of game, like, hey, this game isn't what we keep hearing it to be. It's actually good. It's actually, you know, doing good things and all that. It's like versus the normal PR nightmare you'd hear outside of the realm of Star Citizen, about Star Citizen being the whole citizen, blah blah blah. It's this. They're selling you ships. And
yeah.
And it's a question of, it's different because obviously, look, we have our nose to the glass. You know, we are biased. But you gotta, I think the problem is that in regards to Star Citizen, how it's perceived by others, clearly you gotta take in all the facts, whether they be negative and against Star Citizen or for Star Citizen. The problem is people just look at one side or the other.
Yeah. My one main concern is that I think Star Citizen, I think CIG is at a point where they have a potential to really kind of solidify all that positive energy that's been developing, but they're in danger of their marketing team pushing it a little too far. And I think that's, like we've commented in the past, where they're coming out with these commercials and these shorts, these movie shorts that are giving an impression that they are that AAA level. And I think that's dangerous, because that's where it could tip, you know, all the positives that everyone's hearing and seeing about it. And then suddenly, you know, you're getting this in your face, look, we're AAA, we're ready to go. And yet the state of the game is still kind of buggy. You could turn those people back off really quickly. So I hope CIG's marketing is really smart and just kind of backs off a little bit. You can still put some product out there, but don't be so flashy with it, I guess is my point.
I mean,
yeah, no, absolutely.
I agree. It's, if you're gonna be flashy, tell them why. Like, or just be more open and honest with what it is. Don't try to pass it off as something else.
Yeah.
Well, and we've seen though this kind of disconnect from the marketing team of, here's what we, the marketing team, think the game could be, versus, hey, here's how the game actually is. And I mean, obviously, like, you don't want to go and show off a video. You know, if you're going, hey, here's Alpha 3.18 coming up on you, you know, or you know, Alpha 4.0, and here's a video of someone walking down a staircase and then dying instantly. Like, okay, no, you don't want to go and show that. You don't want to go and necessarily show off your bugs, but at the same time, you don't want to go and be presenting a fake idea of what the game is. Because, like, what was it, 2 or 3 patches ago, one of these little videos they put out, and it showed someone flying, I think, a constellation into a cargo deck, having cargo being physically loaded on and then flying out. And it's like, CIG have said this is, you know, personal hangars and cargo elevators in personal hangars have superseded the idea that cargo decks are going to be where you will directly on or offload cargo. They're for storing cargo, but not on or offloading. And so it was just like, what is this shit? Like it's a pretty video, but it has absolutely nothing to do with the gameplay that's going on here.
Yeah.
And it presents that very, I was like, someone comes in the game, hey, how do I land at the cargo dock to offload cargo? You don't do that. What?
Yeah, I saw that part of the video, and that's what I was interested in. That's what I want to do. How do I do that?
And like, oh no, that was all just movie magic.
That
What?
was
Bam, turned
the
off.
Constellation Taurus commercial. And yeah, that's the problem is when you have the developers and the managers having to explain, oh, we were essentially doing art, for lack of a better term, artistic licensing with this commercial versus what you can do in the game. Like that, it shouldn't be understandable in most other games. You have a cinematic trailer, etc. But this isn't most other games. This isn't even a game yet. I think that's the problem. So you got to be more open and truthful. What this is. This is alpha. It says so on the tin, and that's exactly what it is.
Yep.
Yeah, so overall, I think Star Citizen is in a better position than it was previously, but that's not. I by saying that, I'm not in any way saying like they're out of the thick of it. Like they're still in dangerous quicksand territory if they step the wrong way.
Yep.
Yeah, but we'll find out in a month or so from now.
Yeah. Hopefully.
Finger crossed.
Be curious to see what happens with the next big the big I can't think of the name right now. When they sell all the ships after.
Oh yeah, the Intergalactic
Anniversary.
Aerospace, the November sale.
Yeah.
The holiday sale. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see what the sales are like just from this large onboard of people over the past year. I think we're going to see some record-breaking sales. What I'm curious is
been record breaking.
It has, like, each month has been a new record broke. But I'm curious how big those record breaks will be from the ship sales.
Yep.
Yeah, it should be an interesting Citizen Con, and obviously we got the free fly this Thursday, which who knows, maybe that'll go really well. I mean, not a major event, so it shouldn't be that bad compared to most free flies where like Invictus Launch Week or Intergalactic Aerospace Expo, where you have this major event going on at the same time as the free fly. Here it's just a free fly. So
Is this a normally scheduled free fly, or are they just doing it out of the blue kind of?
I mean, as far as
think it's
I'm
kinda
aware,
out
it
of
feels
the
like
blue.
it's out of the blue, but
I
it
don't
may have been
remember
scheduled.
last year if they had a free fly while the ship showdown was going on.
I think I remember that they normally do a free fly at the end of the showdown so that they can get people in to see those paints and like, hey, free fly the ships, the top 4. I seem to recall them doing
Well, that's
that.
during Invictus. Not sorry. The Aerospace Expo, which is later in November.
And
Okay, I
think
seem to
on,
recall them doing that for the ship showdown as well. But
I mean,
I
they may
could
be
wrong.
doing. I mean, they're doing free flies a lot more often just the last 2 years alone,
Yeah, no, they are.
which is great because
I mean-
it gives more people a way to experience the game. Talked about.
Yeah, it's a good marketing tactic, I think. Like, it makes
Oh,
sense.
yeah. And I
And
think
it doesn't have an adverse effect on the general, gameplay community. So I think it's a good thing.
The servers
right now.
tank performance.
Okay.
Okay.
Other than that, but what I mean is
Yeah.
like you don't, it's yeah.
Aside from a
I
few performance issues here and there, yeah, overall it's unchanged from a regular week in Star Citizen.
I think also they had said that so there's going to be the free fly. There's also, while the free fly is going on, there's going to be some referral thing going on like they've had before, whether you Dragonfly or whatever. Bear in mind too, especially as SitCon is coming closer, and I think they said Thursday we might also, or sometime this week, we might also get more details on what exactly we can expect for SitCon. But bear in mind, we've got, I think it's a couple of different unknown vehicles in the roadmap. And I think
That's
one or
true.
two of them are getting kind of close, and the others could still be like some kind of a concept sale if they pop one of those off.
I thought I could have sworn that we figured out that it's like there's up to 4 unknown ships that could potentially be released. We're not sure
Sounds
that
about
that
right.
will be it, but I think there's at least 4 that we know of that have been being worked on. So I mean that's a big number.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, they might even do like, hey, here's 2 at once. I don't know that
Yeah.
they would, but it's potentially
Well, you
possible.
could see. Here's an idea that just popped in my head. We know that they've been working on the 600i and reworking the interior. And if you remember, the 600i was supposed to come with a ground vehicle that we've not heard anything about. So that
Talking to
could be
Lynx?
one of them.
Would be
Sorry?
interesting to see
Was
some
it
like
the
scrapped
Lynx
concepts.
rover?
I think it was the
Return.
Lynx, but I'm not absolutely sure, so that's why I didn't say.
I
But
think the Lynx itself is on the roadmap as its own because we already know
okay,
of it. I believe it is on the roadmap because I went through the thing like the other day. Me and Amanda were just kind of chilling, and I was kind of going through and just looking at it
okay.
and some of this stuff, and I'm pretty sure the Lynx is on there.
I was just thinking
Not
that
to say
might
it
be a
couldn't
good
pop up, but
marketing, like, hey, here we reworked the 600i and here's the links that you're supposed to get ready to go. But
Yeah,
yeah,
it,
don't know when
it's
that's going to be ready.
it'd be interesting to see a bunch of other scrapped concepts return in some capacity where they now work with the game.
I personally would like to see some new unknown ship release. Like that's cool. I'm all for that. But at the same time, I'd also like to see a couple of the old school, still need to be worked, still need to actually be released, or maybe some of the originals getting their gold standard rework as kind of like, hey, here's a release. Here's something new and here's something old combined. Like,
right.
Yeah.
Or
So
maybe even
I'm
something
very
along the
gold
lines of
standard.
like what they did with the Vanguard. 'Cause remember, the Vanguard was when they reworked it
Yeah.
entirely. They're like, oh, we're gonna make it look like it's concept art now. By the way, and it overall, I think it worked out really, really well. You look at that ship; it's still one of my favorites.
yeah, and the thing that I really liked was they put the hoplite rear ramp on all of them, so you could actually walk
Yep.
up and down a ramp
Mm-hmm.
instead of
I'm
trying to.
hoping years down the line here. So we're talking like 3-4 years here. I'm hoping the Carrack gets a gold pass at that point, and they're like, "Hey, let's actually go and make this thing look less like a fat penguin and more like the concept art everyone liked here." Huh?
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll see.
Especially since the reason why they made it like the way it is right now is because they had to shrink it so that it can fit on the large pads, not the
Yeah, and
larger
they've been
pads.
talking about
But
undoing
honestly,
that.
But
You
if
know
they're
what?
getting rid of the pads and we're gonna have
Well,
hangers, then you could resize
pads
the
slash
Carrack.
hangers, because like the hanger that it
Yeah,
spawns
it was
in
still the same.
is just big enough for it. And I think the problem's like, yeah, you wanted to shrink it so that it would fit on that scale. But honestly, I think you're just doing it a disservice because getting it in and out of
Oh,
the
yeah.
hanger is a pain in the ass.
Yeah, it really is.
Like, if you just made it a little bit bigger, you can put it in the bigger hanger, people would be a lot more pleased because it'd be easier to get in and out of the hanger, which would make landing and taking off easier and faster, which would then result in more transit and so on.
It has a small ship docking port on there, so it's like it can already for areas that they're like, oh, we want to have it be spawnable in as many locations as possible, which I mean I appreciate, but at the same point here, you can easily have every single station out there. You can throw a small ship docking port on there to marry up to the Carrack tube, and as long as there's enough space around there, which there should be. Boom, there you go. You can spawn it at any station that you want to have it be available at. So I never really bought the whole thing of we want it available as many locations as possible. Yeah, enough to redesign or squish the whole vehicle here. Come on.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, as you
And
said, like, you
wasn't that-
have. Yeah, sorry, you go.
No, I was just gonna say, wasn't that the whole point of the freelancer? Wasn't the freelancer supposed to be like the multi-purpose, go anywhere, do anything back in the day? And the Carrack was going to be, a larger, more spaceborne
I mean, it was
explorer.
supposed to be the be-all, end-all capital ship explorer.
Yeah, it's supposed
Yeah.
to be this deep
Capital,
space
keyword.
military exploration vessel.
And I
But
guarantee
on that note-
too.
Sorry.
No, go on.
No, I was just being a wise ass. On that note, all this is great conversation, but where's my terrapin? Goddammit!
Yeah, don't. I'm getting people.
That
I've been
needs a fucking rework.
I've been getting people to say, "Hey, we should turn the terrapin into an SRV," and I'm getting people on board. So maybe we can get a Spectrum thread or something going where people are like, "Hey, let's get this thing to be modular so we can have be an SRV."
I heard
The
Astro
Tonka
Pub
Tough,
actually say.
The Tonka Tough ambulance.
I heard Astro Pub actually say on one of his shows that he thought that they should have a medical version of the terrapin. So I mean,
Working.
that's helping spread the idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the thing with the Carrack, it's like, yeah, as you say, you can just have the Carrack go, "Oh no, I've came to a station that I can't land at because Carrack is too big." All right, get in the Pisces. We'll put someone stay on the Carrack to put in stationary
Yeah, I mean, you've got
orbit
the
or
Pisces,
something,
you've got a
and then
docking
fly
port
off
on
with
there.
the Pisces to get to the station, or use the docking color. Yeah.
Or even also too, you could also very easily have, you remember way back in the past. Now, I think I know how
The
they did
days
it,
of yore.
but I think this could still be done in a realistic manner. But way back when we still had the hangar module, you could go and in there, it would be like, hey, here's one section of the hangar. And it would be like in that one section, you could spawn either like one really big ship, so one large ship, two medium ships, or like three small ships, depending on where on the floor you went to the little marker and selected it and then selected what ship. And then it's like, okay, you now have that one thing taking up this much space. You could just as easily have for landing pads the exact same thing, to where you have, okay, there's 5 small ship landing pads on here, all on one large pad, and you just have little painted areas, like a little circle or something for each small ship. And then you would have like a dotted line figuring out, okay, here's 3 medium ships or 1 large ship, or like something along those lines, to where, oh, if you got the 1 large ship on there, it deactivates the other small ship landing pads. If there's already a small ship on there, nope, large ship, you can't land. Like, they literally had this, and I'm speaking of ignorance here on programming, but I wouldn't imagine it would be too severely hard to say, okay, if there's already a large ship here, you can't go and land small ships. If there's already a small ship here, you can't go and land large ships, kind of thing on there. So one ship will deactivate the other ship's landing pads in a logical manner so that you can have, like 2 small ships and 1 medium ship, whatever. But it's like, there you go. You can now have large areas to where you can service as many ships as you want of all different types as you want. Like, this isn't rocket science, I think.
Sound like a crazy old man, Cam.
Probably. I am kind of crazy and I am kind of old.
But you're not a man, so you don't have that last one.
Oh.
Well,
Oh.
I was born in a test tube in a government lab, Area 51, deep underground. What? Did I say that out loud?
Think of a clone now.
Huh?
I didn't hear
Every
anything.
chromosome is a hand-me-down.
I'm gonna get a nasty email for this. I just know it.
If an email is all you get, then you're lucky, man.
Seriously, that's all that happens. But I think we're done. I think that's it, unless we're missing something. The
Good chat,
317 to hotfix Alpha 318 being pushed back in regards to Evocati, but still planned for Q3. The persistent anti-streaming and all the inside sources and stuff. We covered everything, I think.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
so.
Good chat.
Indeed, this was a
Mhm.
good one. So that's it, I guess. Same bet time, same bet channel next week.
Sounds good.
Theoretically.
See y'all later. Have a
Yep.
good week.
Yeah.
Yep. Have a good Labor Day, everyone watching. Thanks for
Drive
watching.
fast. Take chances.
Exactly. Don't do school. Stay in drugs. Drink lots of sleep.
I drink 8 gallons of sleep every night.